Hello, hello, hello. Live on Status Coup Sunday. Live from our bunker as the World War begins. Jordan Sheridan, joined by the great Tina-Desiree Berg, coast to coast. I'm in New York. You are in LA. And who knows where the country will be by the time we sign off today, because I think we've already launched a war. And I have Iraq, Afghanistan, maybe even Vietnam deja vu, even though I wasn't around during Vietnam. Obviously, folks don't need us to tell you. You all know that we bombed, or should I say Trump, bombed three locations. First of all, smash that like button, share this live stream so we can get it out to as many people as possible. Sundays, we've been going, we didn't go live last Sunday for Father's Day. But we are going live as many Sundays as we can as a way to kind of carve out our identity as, Status Sundays. We're going to be live on Sundays. Also push membership. So later on in the show, we'll be featuring a lot of the footage that Tina heroically, bravely got in Los Angeles during ICE's latest reign of terror, as CNN and other mainstream journalists were, kind of sitting over there, combing their hair, tweeting while Tina was getting shot at. So we're going to show you some of that footage. We're also going to give you an update. We haven't talked about it yet. We are suing the city of Los Angeles, its police chief, us, the Los Angeles Press Club, among others. So we will give you kind of the skinny on that, because about time journalists stand up for themselves. Yeah. We can't normalize essentially this lawlessness targeting, the protesters shouldn't be targeted either. But in this case, we can't sue on behalf of all the protesters. So we're suing on behalf of ourselves. We'll give you updates on that. But first, obviously, the big news is the bombing of these facilities under the BS guise that Iran was 5 minutes away from a nuke. Breaking news, they weren't, if you believe that.
Jordan, they've been 5 minutes away from a nuke for the last 30 years, let's be honest. That is the line they've kept putting out there over and over again.
We're going to play that clip of Netanyahu basically saying, yeah. But first, let's give you anti-war Trump. Remember when leftists, or air quotes, leftists on YouTube were saying Trump is more anti-war than the Democrats? And I was like, yeah, none of them are anti-war. They're all war pigs. And some leftists were trying to masquerade Trump as an anti-war guy. Just a little reminder, since we're the news and we're supposed to be factual. Donald Trump in his first term armed Ukraine. People, conveniently forget that. Bombed Syria. Assassinated Soleimani, Iran's then, top commander, which was an act of war. What else? Tried an illegal coup in Venezuela.
Yeah.
Forget that. That kind of warlike, in my opinion. Kept his foot on the gas. More drone attacks than Obama. And Obama was the drone king. I'm forgetting a few other. Pentagon budget went up every year. Now, under Trump 2.0, we're now at $1 trillion in Pentagon budget. So save me the anti-war garbage. Oh, by the way, credit to Biden. I don't get to credit him often. He got us out of Afghanistan, not Trump. Right. So this man is not anti-war. And he lied, among many other things. When he was running for president the first time, he lied because he wasn't against the Iraq war in the 2000s. He just reinvented it, and the media let him lie about that like he lied about everything else. But let's listen to our dear leader yesterday announcing this latest act of war.
The U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let.
All right. Couple things there. Number one, Vance and the lineup behind them, it looks like a hostage. They look like they were taken hostage.
Of the apocalypse. The four horsemen of the apocalypse is what I'm calling that. Yeah.
I mean, Vance in particular does not look happy, and there's going to be a lot of leaks because people are going to try to cover their own ass. Who was for this? Who was against it? Vance is obviously angling to be the successor to Trump if Trump doesn't run again, because that's been normalized too. The notion that Trump could serve 3 terms, even though it's blatantly unconstitutional. But this is from Rand Paul's chief of staff. According to sources, the VP, Secretary of Defense, and DNI, that's Gabbard, advised against getting involved. Why have them if you're not going to listen to them? Because it's a cult.
Yeah.
Because it's a cult. That's why.
Exactly.
And I believe that. That at least Rubio was probably for it because he's always been a neocon. But I believe that Vance was against this because he's at least talked the talk about, why are we getting involved in Iran? Why would we get further involved between Israel and the Palestinians, etc.? So Trump obviously did that on his own. We'll get into the reasons Trump did it, which I could give you 100 million reasons. But that's number one. The other thing, when Trump says Iran is the bully of the Middle East, who's he talking about? We are the bully of the Middle East. I mean, everything he just talked about, a lot of that happened because America created a fake war. Actually, it was a real war, but under fake premises for us to go into Iraq. The cowboy adventurism under Bush, Tina. I
would go back further. I would say, what about us overturning a democratically elected Iranian government in the 50s because they were going to nationalize the oil? Then we, after did that, put the Shah in place, who was a terrible leader and caused all kinds of problems. There were all kinds of repercussions for that. We gave part of the oil licenses to American oil firms. I mean, it goes back much further, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I'm not here to, pontificate about how the Ayatollah and the Iranian regime is so great. Clearly, they're not a democracy. Clearly, they're oppressive to women. There's a lot of horrible things. In many other countries around the world, you want to bomb all of them too? They're not. Iran's not the only one that are, oppressive and authoritarian, and more we're oppressive and authoritarian. But you can't just go around the world. Well, you can. That's what we do. You can't just go around the world, as the boy who cried wolf. Oh, they're 5 minutes away from a nuke. We got to go in and bomb them. And you're going to see, as we play more and more clips, the evidence for this is even flimsier than Iraq. And that was made up. At least with Iraq, Tina, I got to give Bush some credit and his cronies. At least they didn't do it in 5 minutes. It was meticulous. They sent Colin Powell to the United Nations.
Yeah, he had a conversation. He talked to some congressmen. Like, he did some stuff before he preemptively went in there.
I mean, it's crazy.
Let me ask you this, Jordan, because I think, you're sort of hinting at this conversation that's happening inside the Republican Party with that tweet. And I think it's important to look at the two factions, so the neoconservatives, these are the, the George Bushes of the world, the Kagans, the whatever. Then you have the America First coalition. They are very much isolationist. They are very much anti-war, always have been. They obviously don't support Israel. So these are the folks like the Steve Bannons, the Charlie Kirks. They don't want to go to war. They're all going to line up and support Trump no matter what. Steve Bannon actually said that this morning, basically said, I don't support this war. I think it's wrong. But MAGA is going to do what is going to support what Trump does ultimately, regardless. Because you're right, they're in a cult. But I don't think that's true of all the America First individuals. And that group, contains some troublesome extremists. So
I got breaking news for all of you. And by the way, we got what do we got here? 400 watching on YouTube. We got to get that number way up. Smash that like button. Share this live stream. Sundays we go live to push membership. I'm not going to push membership as much because like we're at war, so I don't want to be tone deaf. However, we do need to grow our membership to support the on the ground reporting, like Tina has done for us. Ashley is doing for us. Who knows? With Trump, every other day there's another distraction technique. So he just bombed Iran. He might now increase the ICE raids now to distract. He might try to.
I think so.
So we need the funding to be on the ground for all of this. So please, if you're not yet a paying member, we're going to play you a lot of our on the ground clips in a little bit. But please support us. We're going live on Sunday. I got a newborn and a toddler. I'm here. Tina could be doing other things on Sunday. We're here for you. So please support us if you can. $5 a month, statuscoup.com/join. We're going to do our members only video call, not this week, next week. So if you're a member, you get access to our monthly members calls. That's through a program like Zoom. It's video. You don't have to be on camera. You could just listen. But it's a lot of fun. We also do behind the scenes content from on the ground. Tina just did a members video kind of describing the war zone-esque that was LA. And you get great merchandise discounts too as a Status Coup member. So statuscoup.com/join. I'll promote it throughout the show, but I wanted to get in that. I got breaking news, Tina. Unfortunately, there is no such thing as America first. There's Trump first. Because Steve Bannon, who he talks the talk. We don't need to get involved. Let Israel fight its own war, which they don't because we fund all of it. And we're funding Israel's healthcare, by the way, too. Because they have socialized medicine, we basically fund that. But he has said, he's been with Tucker Carlson against getting involved with Iran.
Yeah, Tucker's another one. He criticized Trump originally, has now walked that back and apologized. And Bannon too basically said, yeah, I'm against this, but I'll follow Trump. Then what's the point of your political ideology if it's not really based on politics? It's based on Trump. And let's be perfectly clear why they're doing this, folks, because we have some MAGA in our audience. So I want you to know MAGA. Tucker Carlson is running with his tail between his legs because Trump criticized him publicly. Bannon is surrendering to our dear leader, even though he's not for this, because his audience is MAGA and Trump cultists. So is Carlson's. Most of Carlson's audience is MAGA and Trump cultists. And I say cultists, it sounds like a knock, but I've been telling you, MAGA, sorry, you're being hoodwinked. There's a liberal cult too. I agree.
There's an MSNBC cult too. They're just not as dangerous. They're mentally dangerous, not physically dangerous. But all of these people, Charlie Kirk, he knows his bread and butter is his bread is buttered by Trump and MAGA. So he's not going to go against Trump and lose his meal ticket.
Yeah, the right-wing media sphere is full of a lot of clout-chasing grifters. That's just not up for debate. I don't think there's any legitimate grassroots on the media side of the right wing. It's all funded by dark money. But I do think that there are individuals that watch these programs that are not going to feel the same way.
Yes,
I do think
there is a contingent.
Yeah, so where that goes, I don't know. But there is a lot of anger out there towards the support of Israel, towards the bombing of Iran. But let me also say this: there's a section of, and I'm talking about when I say right-wing extremism, I'm talking about like guys that identify as white nationalists, neo-Nazis, whatnot. Some of them do like Israel because they think it solves their JQ, right? The Jewish question. What do we do with Jews in our country? Well, we can export them all to their own nationalist country, and yay, it's no nationalist. We love that, right? So, there's no group is monolithic. Let's put it that way. And there's definitely a dichotomy of belief within this sphere.
Right. But to be clear, I think, and we have a lot more clips to play, so I'll try to condense this. But I think we have to talk in broader terms because actually last week marked 10 years of Trump. It was a 10-year anniversary, a decade of him going down the golden escalator. Yeah. And I think what people need to realize is Trump, say what you want about him. Trump executed on the biggest con job in American history. I agree. There's been a lot of them. A billionaire born on third base with a silver spoon in his mouth, whose daddy bailed him out to the tune of $300 to $400 million. Trump would have went belly up many times, including Atlantic City, if his dad didn't bail him out. Okay, he's not self-made; he's daddy-made. Okay,
he's also not the sharpest tool in the shed. This idea that he's a successful, smart businessman is nonsense.
No, and he, by the way, all his, Trump Tower, his ties, all of his shit. He talks about tariffs. All of his shit is made in China, Taiwan. So this man, a billionaire born on third base, who was a big failure, if not for his father, convinced what's left of the American middle class, and there's not much left of a lot of the American middle class, convinced them that he's some fighter for the little guy.
Yeah, I don't get it.
He's literally got ahead by stomping on the little guy, by not paying his own contractors, by skating taxes. You want the real Russiagate? He was money laundering through Russia dating back to the 1980s and 90s. That was the real collusion. And his biggest clients, his son said this when he was running, his biggest real estate clients were Russian oligarchs. That's why he was so deferential to Putin. I always said his campaign wasn't smart enough or organized enough to collude or organize with the Russian government. So I think this tenure, and he convinced people he was anti-war. There's plenty of clips of him supporting the Iraq war when it happened. So
no, the guy is definitely an imperialist.
He's just a brilliant bullshit artist and salesman, and the media went along with it. And
but let's talk about that. That's part of the problem, isn't it, Jordan? I think from The Apprentice, when he ran for, all of these things have helped prop up this sort of fake version of who he truly is, right? Idolized him in a way that he never should have been, never exposed him for who the guy he was. And, why is media doing that? Well, they're doing it for clicks and money. A part of the problem we have in our current society is that a big chunk of our industry is not doing public service anymore. They're doing news entertainment for clicks. They're doing it to make money. And it's really contributing to, in my opinion, the downfall of our democracy.
All right, let's keep moving. Smash that like button. We got almost 600 people watching, so let's keep it going. Now, there is clearly a discrepancy because Trump said we obliterated Iran's Fordo is the name of it. Iran's nuclear bunker, as Israel and America have been hysterically calling it. And Trump said we obliterated it. Well, according to facts, no, you didn't. I mean, the New York Times has reported that it's damaged, but it's certainly not destroyed. And J.D. Vance, I'll just read this from the Times so you kind of get a feel. So all this, which again, he just started a war. Let's be clear. You don't bomb. They're going to retaliate, probably against the U.S. military bases and personnel in different parts of the world. Iran's Fordo site said to look severely damaged, not destroyed. Initial military assessment of the buried nuclear site contrasts with the statement on the strike they made by President Trump. So once again, it's a post-truth society, and Trump is the leader of it because he's basically saying we took it out completely. No, you did not. Now let's show you there was J.D. Vance, who again, he doesn't want to go against Trump because of his own 2028 ambitions. But here is him kind of hedging when challenged on Sunday morning shows today. Did you actually destroy this, supposed nuclear bunker?
But let me drill down on what was accomplished, because there's a report this morning in the New York Times that Fordo, that deep underground enrichment facility, was severely damaged but not fully destroyed. But the president said last night the enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Can we say that definitively, or are we just not sure yet? I mean, have those facilities been obliterated?
Well, John, severely damaged versus obliterated, I'm not exactly sure what the difference is. What we know is that the nuclear program back substantially. And again, John, I don't want to get into very sensitive intelligence about what we know, but I feel extremely confident, and I can say to the American people with great confidence that they are much further away from a nuclear program today than they were 24 hours ago. That was the objective of the mission, to destroy that Fordo nuclear site and, of course, do some damage to the other sites as well. But we feel very confident that the Fordo nuclear site was substantially set back, and that was our goal.
I don't know about you, Tina, but this kind of sounds like when Bill Clinton said, well, it depends what the definition of is.
Right.
when he's saying, well, you say tomato, I say tomato, obliterated versus severely damaged. No, that's a pretty big distinction. First of all, to be clear, I don't trust the generals on cable news. We don't even know what's in this facility. We don't know how much uranium they really had. And by the way, I mean, just because they have uranium doesn't mean they are, again, trying to actually enrich it to make a weapon. Right. Most sane people say, yeah, they're building uranium as a deterrent to Israel and America. We don't fuck with North Korea anymore because they have a nuke. Not because we think they're about to use it.
People know that Israel has nuclear weapons, right?
Well, the New York Times doesn't report that. CNN barely mentions that.
Nobody does. That's the thing. Nobody does. And I think but I do think it's an important part of the conversation. Right.
So Vance basically, is giving away the game. There was no solid reason to do this, because we just basically launched a war, and we don't even really know how much of this was destroyed, what was destroyed, and the unintended consequences. Iran is already saying we're going to close down the Strait of Hormuz. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. So get ready for your oil to go way up. Your gas is going to go way up in America. But MAGA, who blamed Biden for it when it happened under Biden, they're going to look the other way because it's Trump. Your gas is going to go up. That's a major global shipping lane for trade. And not to mention, again, Iran cannot, this is strongman politics. They cannot not respond. They're going to do something to go.
They're going to respond.
And by the way, in their calculation, they have to respond, because if they don't, it's going to galvanize Trump and the neocons in his mind. AIPAC, Miriam Adelson, who gave Trump $100 million. That's part of this, why Trump did this. Miriam Adelson is the widow of Sheldon Adelson, who was the Zionist billionaire before he died. He was one of the top, pasty white oligarchs that Republicans had to go kiss the ring for when they ran for president.
No money.
He gave Trump $30 million during his first campaign. Trump, in return, moved the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Right. His widowed wife upped the ante and gave him $100 million. And basically, in response, Trump has openly called to make Gaza like a
beach resort. Yeah,
a beach resort. And now, as the Adelsons have wanted forever, are basically helping Israel. This is for regime change. We want to install an American puppet in Iran. But I think what's key there, if you were going to do this, which is an act of war, you can't just hey, I think Trump maybe thought this is going to be like the assassination of Soleimani, where we just did it and
there'd be no consequence. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you can't consequences. But I think Vance is trying to have it both way, because then he doesn't want to contradict Trump. Trump said, we obliterated, it's over. That's not true. We didn't. But he also wants to make it seem like, at least we got something. So we seriously damaged their ability by, months and years. Well, which one is it? Now I want to get to, again, I think this is even more flimsy than the bullshit intelligence that put us into Iraq. Here is Netanyahu, who basically seemed to be running multiple presidents. He ran roughshod over Biden, and it seems like he's running roughshod over Trump, the strongman deal maker. By all reports, Netanyahu started this 2 weeks ago with Israel's attack on Iran. He went against what Trump wanted. That's all the reporting, that Trump actually wanted to continue diplomacy, and Netanyahu ignored him and went ahead with it. And then when Trump thought, oh, wow, this went really well, Trump then claimed, oh, I was in on it. We were working together, because Trump just looks at it as a win. Here's Netanyahu dating back 30 years on Iran imminently having a nuclear weapon.
If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year. It could be within a few months.
They have the wherewithal, the stored up, preserved knowledge to make a bomb very quickly if they wanted to do it.
Iran is so dangerous. Weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
They're very close. They're 6 months away from being about 90% of having the enriched uranium for an atom bomb.
Iran is gearing up to produce 25 bombs, atomic bombs a year,
250 bombs in a decade.
Ladies and gentlemen, time is running out.
Iran will be capable of producing alone, without importing anything, nuclear bombs within 3 to 5 years.
So that's how.
Can we talk about this? That's 1995, Jordan. 1995. Think about this for a minute. This is how far Israel has gone to the right in the last 30 years. He was part of a very small minority of opposition leaders to what was at the time the sort of quote unquote liberal Zionists that were vehemently opposed to all of this. And now you would be hard pressed to find anybody in the state of Israel saying that Netanyahu's wrong. It's, pardon my French, it's fucking nuts.
But to be clear, Trump is a buffoon, but he's not a total idiot. I know those sound like the same thing, but like buffoon and idiot are different. He's not like, he does have some political acumen. He does have some political instincts.
He's great at political theater. He's very skilled at that. I agree.
So the question is, why would Trump do? Because Trump knows that they're not close to a nuclear weapon. Trump also knows that even if they had a nuclear weapon, they want it for deterrence, so that we can't just go in there and do regime change like we've done in the past. They basically want to be North Korea, have it so that nobody fucks with them. I'm not saying Iran is a good guy. I'm not saying that it would be great if Iran had a nuclear weapon, but let's not pretend Iran is, they're just suicidal and are going to just get a nuclear weapon and then just nuke America or nuke Israel.
Yeah, they're not doing that. I agree that you're correct on that. And it seems really stupid and hypocritical that people don't see that for what it is. We all have nuclear weapons. What is stopping us from using them on other people? Well, because it's mutually assured destruction. That's what's stopping us. But for Iran, who has no deterrent, whether you like them or not is sort of tangential to that obviousness.
But let's not also forget what's going on, because Trump is a master of deflection, distraction, and making everybody look in 25 different directions. So we're all just so confused and overwhelmed. We just had him sending in his Gestapo to multiple cities, which you covered and we're going to get to. So this is going to distract from that as ICE continues their reign of terror. We've covered it in New York, LA, and many other cities. They're also snatching up American citizens accidentally.
Oh, 100%. No, it's not by accident. They're using traps. They're trapping people with, there's a lot going on with DHS that needs to be framed properly that's not being framed properly right now by legacy media, in my opinion. And one of those things is that they are 100% snatching people up by trapping them. These are people that are, following the rules. So I'm here on asylum. I have a court date for my asylum case. I have to go by law. I'm going to follow the rules. I go to my court case and ICE snatches me up and arrests me. And then wait for it. Let's add injury to insult. I don't know that people understand that this was happening in LA. They were then calling the family members of these individuals that came in for their court cases that they snatched up and said, come get your loved one. It's fine. And then instead of doing that, they were like, oh, wait, let's arrest the family members too. And all of these people are being stored, because that's what this is. They don't have proper facilities for this, in the basement of the federal detention center, where they don't have adequate bedding, adequate water, adequate anything, bathrooms. It's absolutely fucking disgusting. And these are 100% government agencies doing this.
We're going to get to all this more, because this is part of why we're Status Coup. This channel is suing the city of Los Angeles and the police chief based on their not only terror, I think it's terrorism against protesters, but illegal targeting of journalists, including Tina, who is out there for us, and many others. So we're going to get to that later. By the way, welcome new Status Coup member Sandra just signed up. So remember, folks, obviously this is a serious day. I'm not going to do a pep rally here, but we do come on Sundays to push membership, because we're frankly the only independent outlet that I'm aware of that's consistently on the ground covering not just protests, but covering what the corporate media covers up. Tina can tell you, CNN, their reporters were standing there in heels looking like they saw a ghost as LA police, LAPD, LA sheriff. Yeah, tell the story.
I'm giggling at your rendition of this, but honestly, it's fucking pathetic that CNN put these reporters in this position. It's kind of gross, in my opinion. They were very ill prepared for what they were facing. this poor gal didn't have gas. None of them, her crew, none of them had gas masks. The California Highway Patrol has been using very serious CS gas. They started launching the CS gas, and I was basically, if you don't have a gas mask, you need to go. And they were like, wow, what are you talking about? I'm like, my God, this is insane that this crew is out here right now in the middle of this with literally no protective gear and wearing, business attire. It's like,
well, I think the point is the reason they don't have a gas mask, the reason that they're there in heels is because they don't plan on actually getting up close to the action. CNN, MSNBC.
Right. They were, so.
Well, by accident, yes. So
yeah, unfortunate. And then they have the audacity to email me multiple times and ask for free footage. It's unbelievable.
Yes, but
I cannot.
We will read the super chats at the end, and I'll shout out everyone who signs up as a member. Okay, so I think what Trump is doing, Trump's not stupid. He knows they're not 5 minutes away from a nuke, but he wrongly thinks this will be like his assassination of Soleimani, which could have started a war. He's lucky it didn't. Yeah. He thinks it's going to be one and done. Maybe Iran will go after some U.S. military installations, but he doesn't think this is going to start a war. But what he does know this will do is distract from his, champagne for the oligarchs bill. That is cutting Medicaid nearly $1 trillion.
Right.
Giving
massive tax cut for the rich. Yeah.
You think his tax cut in 2017 for rich people was bad? This is that on steroids. This is the biggest tax cut for the rich ever. It's bigger than Bush. It's bigger than Bush's welfare for the rich in the 2000s, and it's bigger than Trump 2017. This is the massive biggest tax cut in history that will go towards wealthy people. If you make if you are in the top 1%, you are going to get nearly a $300,000 tax break annually. If you make between $17,000 and $50,000, meaning the poor to lower working class, you're going to get a tax increase of $700. Yeah. So what's a good way to distract from that? Let's start a war, or at least, at least start bombing people. So the news will cover that. So the protests will be about that. And we could sneak in here this bill that literally fucking all of us up the ass. Excuse my English. And within that bill is more pork than a fucking farm with pigs, and more hidden gems like, hey, we're not going to allow states to regulate artificial intelligence for a decade.
Yeah, they squeezed that one in there.
As artificial intelligence is already replacing entry-level jobs, so if you're young watching or if you have kids watching, good luck if you even can pay for college. If you graduate college, good luck getting an entry-level job because you're being replaced by machine learning or robots.
Machine learning, yeah.
It's just terrible. So I think a lot of this is a distraction mechanism, and Trump honestly thinks that he could just pound his chest and roar, and Iran will be scared into not taking further action. But Iran,
it's not happening.
No, definitely not. All right,
so and he might be the same. Whether he realizes it or not, he might be provoking other countries in the Middle East to come to Iran's aid at this point.
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
We're going to get to that. All right, but I want to get to Tulsi Gabbard, who I got to take the L on this one. I bought her bullshit back in the day. I bought her anti-war,
Jordan, I interviewed Tulsi multiple times back in the day. I have interviews with her. Man, her story arc is wild, though. I have to say, it's wild. The tendencies were there. I mean, her support for Modi was a sign of that, I suppose. But going all the way to being in the Trump administration, I did not have that on my bingo card, to be honest.
Well, let's just play the clip. This is Tulsi, I believe, in March. She's the head of, director of national intelligence, which I don't really know why we need this position. Isn't that what the CIA chief is supposed to be? Anyway, here's the director of national.
The CIA is all of the intelligence, not just the CIA. So,
well, if you've noticed, they're not very intelligent, either of them. But here's Tulsi telling the truth. Here.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program.
So I think she's being honest there, honestly. Honestly.
Breaking news, she walked it back because because Trump was asked, I think last week before he bombed Iran, your own DNI chief
you
said
listening
that
to your own DNI chief, yeah.
And he said, he literally said, I don't care what she said. So
Right.
she then, I think it was a tweet or something like that the other day saying, oh, the fake news is taking me out of context. And here's the full clip. Me and President Trump.
Her out of context. That is what she was saying, that they didn't. Okay. Wow.
But there was something key in that, because this is how egregious it is. And it kind of matches the timeline, because what we just showed you is Netanyahu all the way back to the 90s saying that they're, within a week, a month, 5 minutes, by lunch, having a nuke. She said that the Ayatollah suspended in 2003. She said that they suspended their attempts or their program dating back to 2003. Not that they weren't. There's a difference between gathering uranium, which obviously is the key ingredient to make a nuclear bomb. Yes, you're gathering that for deterrence. But just you could gather uranium, which you could get uranium, pretty easily around the world. Part of why we're in Ukraine, in my opinion, is to steal their uranium. Anyway, but basically she's saying that the U.S. intelligence, which is not always right, obviously, I give you Iraq and many other disasters, says that they haven't had a serious nuclear program or tried to build a bomb dating back to the beginning of this century. So if they don't have it, what do you need to do to continue, going back to Vietnam? We needed to create the Russian boogeyman, the Reds, the communists. Nothing has changed. We need to keep creating a boogeyman. We need to keep scaring the boomers. Sorry, boomers, not all of you, because we have a lot of wise with it, woke boomers. But a lot of the older crowd believe this shit. They believe, in the 80s and 90s. Not to put you on the spot, but obviously you're slightly older than me, so you remember this back in 80s, 90s, this fear mongering. And they're doing it again with.
Well, part of that is that this is a generation that was raised in an environment where Russia, like Red Scare propaganda, was the norm. Like, I think people need to understand that. You had drills when you were in school, not for live active shooters that they do now. We had them for Russia dropping a bomb. Like, that is how prevalent this and deep this Red Scare stuff was. So I think, myself, I get into college and I'm like, what is all this bullshit? I've been spoon fed my entire, 18 years earlier. But I think a lot of boomers have not gotten past that, because they weren't given that opportunity until the internet, and then they just choose to stay in their little, isolated rabbit holes on the internet and get more radicalized by even crazier stuff. So yeah.
But obviously the big picture here. It's
hard to convince them.
But the bottom line is, it's not to say that the Iranian regime is good or democratic or you want to have a beer with them.
I think
this notion,
point, isn't it?
This notion, but basically. I think people kind of think of the anti-war movement and anti-capitalist movement as two separate things. They're totally connected.
They're intertwined. Yeah, I agree.
Because how the capitalist system continues to, I don't want to say thrive, because there is cracks in it. Obviously, you have more support among younger people for democratic socialism, I would call it. But how capitalism exists is continuing to keep instilling fear of a boogeyman. Whether it's the Viet Cong and North Vietnam, and how if we don't put all our weapons and military into Vietnam, the Reds are going to come further west towards us, and pretty soon everywhere is going to be Russia and China. I mean, we literally launched, in my view, the most disastrous war in American history, based on hyperbolic bullshit. Then you have Iraq, Saddam. Right? Yep. So it's the same thing. There's no objective people that are not sitting on defense boards or security boards, or former commanders that now have analyst jobs on CNN that actually think Iran is suicidal enough to nuke Israel or America. Right.
Yeah, it's not.
But they are smart. They are smart enough to want a deterrent so that we can't come in, steal their oil, do regime change like we've done in the past.
Yeah. 100%.
Crazy.
And I just, of course, I'm thinking about Eisenhower when you say that. He warned us all of that. This was a Republican president. He saw where this was going to end up, playing out with as far as the government.
That is a great segue, because guess who's popping champagne right now, eating caviar? The CEO of Lockheed Martin.
Yeah,
the CEO of Lockheed Martin. Here is the CEO of Lockheed Martin on CNBC. This was right before Trump bombed Iran, but it still applies. Giving a chipper forecast on the surge in defense spending that they're expecting over the next 3 to 5 years.
The COO of Lockheed Martin, Frank St. John, thank you for joining us. Lots to discuss because defense is the topic that is happening right now. And a lot of people are saying defense spending, are we in the beginning stages here, given everything we're seeing, Ukraine, the Middle East, or are we sort of in those middle innings? Where would you say we are?
Hey, Phil, good to see you again. And I would say we are in probably the beginning of a 3 to 5 year surge in defense spending, especially here in Europe. The first couple of years, there was a lot of dialogue and understanding the issue and understanding the demand for deterrence capability. Now we're starting to see those budgets come into play in the European countries, as well as some increases back in the U.S. domestically. So I think for the next 3 to 5 years, budgets are going to be pretty substantial.
Back in the U.S., a lot of people have heard the president talk about the Golden Dome missile defense system. On paper, makes sense. But there are more than a few cynics out there saying, now, wait a second. Huge country like the United States could
Is this fucking real life?
Yeah. It's not shocking to me, sadly. I mean, this is how they think.
And this is also part of why we have to create Boogeyman.
No, 100%.
You need some pretense to keep the money flowing to Lockheed.
Wagging the dog. Yeah.
You need some pretense to keep the money going to Lockheed and Raytheon and Northrop. I always mispronounce Northrop Grumman.
Yeah.
Boeing. And by the way, unfortunately, because we have a capitalist country and we could have good jobs, we could have clean energy jobs, we could be building things, but a lot of our economy, particularly local economy, is built on war. Virginia,
in California, I mean, we used to have all of these defense contractors here in the LA area, not so much now, but 100%, big part of the economy.
But even steel, steel back in the day, a lot of the steel manufacturing was for our war. So if we actually did the right thing and cut the military budget, I say by 70%, we would still be far ahead most of the countries. It would hurt a lot of the economy because a lot of our economy is based on war, which is what Dwight Eisenhower warned about, among other things. But they're doing jumping jacks, all of them, the defense contractors. And how does it work? They then pay off the politicians and the media, because I see ads in Politico Playbook and these corporate newsletters that go out for Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon. They have events where they interview politicians. So it's all incestual. You see ads on CNN for defense contractors. I mean, like he's talking about a surge. Why? Because we're creating more wars that are not necessary.
We're creating a surge for them. Yes, 100%.
And by the way, at the very least, Tina, and I know this sounds cynical, at the very least, at least if you were a low-income, poor American throughout history, particularly black people, you could get some stability through a military. You could go join the military.
Yeah, get your college paid for. Yeah, whatever.
You might lose your life, but if you make it, you get benefits. You get. When you get back, you got the GI Bill and things like that. But now they're even trying to replace servicemen with AI. Pretty soon they're going to be fighting these wars with the robots. So not only are they
the way they treat veterans too is really horrific. Absolutely, their services are now terrible. The GOP keeps cutting them, the funding for it. They literally do not care what happens to these soldiers at all. All they want to do is make money. It's grotesque.
Over 700 people watching. Smash that like button, share this live stream. We got more to show you, to see not only how dangerous this is, but how absurd on its face it is that Trump did this. And I hope you're listening, MAGA, if you're watching. At a certain point, you got to take the blinders off and just call a spade a spade. You've been hoodwinked. You've been gotten. All right. I want to play. Now we got Pete Hegseth. I can't tell when he's sober and when he's not because he seems drunk all the time to me. But here is the defense secretary basically cradling the balls of the president of the United States.
Wait, hang on. Do you know he called this Operation Midnight Hammer?
Yeah.
And I saw a skeet that made me roar, and it said he should have renamed it Hammered at Midnight.
Touche.
For the entirety of his time in office, President Trump has consistently stated for over 10 years that Iran must not get a nuclear weapon. Full stop. Thanks to President Trump's bold and visionary leadership and his commitment to peace through strength, Iran's nuclear ambitions have been obliterated. Many presidents have dreamed of delivering the final blow to Iran's nuclear program, and none could until President Trump. The operation President Trump planned was bold and it was brilliant, showing the world that American deterrence is back. When this president speaks, the world should listen. And the U.S. military, we can back it up. The most powerful military the world has ever known. No other country on planet Earth.
I cannot with that guy. Cannot. God damn.
If just to add to this dystopian hell that we're watching, as we're live, apparently there has now been a shooting in a Michigan church.
Oh,
so I will get, I'll try to get more updates as we go. But there's another shooting in America, this time in a Michigan church. So there's the defense secretary. Again, it's a cult. I mean, it's a joke that you literally plucked a Fox News host off of TV and put him in charge of the obese, the world's most obese, bloated military
budget ever.
Reportedly has a serious alcohol problem in addition to sexual harassment problem. But putting all that aside, again, it just seems like Trump is doing this in a way to distract people from all his terrible domestic tyranny and authoritarianism. And the people around him know the way to keep in his good graces is just literally wag the tail.
Oh my God. Yeah. The ass kissing towards Trump is unbelievable. And then every time somebody tries to criticize him slightly and Trump goes after him, they apologize and they start kissing his ass again. Like, look at the Tucker Carlson thing. It's just pathetic.
So even when like some right wingers are kind of framed as like, oh, they're anti-establishment. No, they're not. Tucker Carlson was at Fox News for however long, pushing nonstop propaganda.
Wait, do people forget he used to work at MSNBC? Do people forget this?
Yes, Tucker Carlson is the establishment.
Remind people that he did a show with Rachel Maddow, and I'm not making this up. If you did not know it, please go look it up. This is a fact.
And by the way, Tucker Carlson recently came out attacking Fox News, calling it like a fire hose of propaganda. Well, aren't you that
true?
But aren't you that admitting you were part of that fire hose of propaganda for?
And I mean, still are.
Yes, but then people want to, the general audience, including right wingers, want to pretend, oh, now they're anti-establishment. No, they're chasing where they see the dollars. None of these people have none of these people have a core ideology. Their ideology is either dollars or power, which go hand in hand. Same thing with Tulsi Gabbard. I could own it that I misjudged her, but her whole shtick was the consequences of war, and we need to stop the regime change, and we need to stop war.
Regime change war, and she's right about that. But does she actually believe it? No.
She is literally now modern day Colin Powell. Colin Powell, he knew the Iraq War. He knew the shit he was saying in front of the United Nations was bullshit, or at least he suspected it. She actually knows. She actually knows she's lying. But she, for her own ambition, wants to stay in Trump's good graces. So, Miss, I'm against war and the consequences of war. I think she legitimately was, because she saw it. She served in Iraq and Afghanistan, I believe. She saw people die. But now, for her own political ambition, she's willing to eat crow and basically be a puppet for Trump and drum up fake intelligence, or at least moonwalk away the real intelligence she gave, which, they're not close to a nuclear weapon. To basically be allowed to continue going to CPAC. I mean, that's really what this is. To basically stay in the conservative network to get a Fox News show or some payout at the end of this rainbow. It's just pathetic.
It is pathetic. She couldn't get traction inside the Democratic Party, so she jumped ship and did this instead. So, I mean, in my opinion, Tulsi does not have any sort of strong principled commitment to, veracity or to ideals of any sort.
And that's why, you know what? That's why, for all the shit Bernie has gotten over the years, because there's a lot of people who used to love, there's a lot of people who used to love Bernie and turned on him because they say he sold out and these other things. I've always said, listen, there's good with bad. I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But at least he has stuck to his conviction, even when his own supporters didn't like it, because he stuck with what he believed. He stuck with what he believed was the right thing to do.
Bernie has commitment to principle.
He didn't go where the wind went, or even in some cases where a lot of his audience, a lot of his base wanted him. A lot of his base didn't want him to endorse Hillary or endorse Biden. He did it anyway because he thought it was the right thing to do. You don't have to agree with it, but I at least respect somebody that sticks to their principles rather than, hey, where's the latest payout? Where are the political winds going, et cetera, et cetera. Now,
you
Tina,
might disagree with what Bernie did, but I don't think he's a sellout. Is my people are calling? I think that's wrong. I don't think he's a sellout.
And a lot of those people saying that, by the way, were the Jimmy Dore were the same ones calling Trump anti-war. Let's remember, a lot of the leftists.
Wait, did Jimmy call Trump anti-war? Did he really? God, I can't.
There's tweets, there's video. I believe it. I'm not going to waste my breath on that guy. All right, we haven't even gotten to the fact that this is blatantly unconstitutional. Remember this small thing that Congress is supposed to declare war, but Democratic presidents and Republican presidents have been tossing that to the side. Here's Hegseth. Asked, when did Congress become aware?
Were they given any advance warning the attacks were coming? And also, Mr. Secretary, when were congressional leaders notified? How long before the attacks took place?
Sir, to your first question, the risk has clearly been rising over the last few weeks in the region. Based on that, and not a particular awareness of this operation, we've made smart decisions to minimize the risk to U.S. forces in the region.
So they were given no advance warning?
No, sir.
In congressional?
They were notified after the planes were safely out. Well, we complied with the notification requirements of the War Powers Act.
After the attacks, they were notified?
They were immediately thereafter. Yes.
So Operation Hammered at Midnight. It's so good. It's so good. Wait, is he serious though? I mean.
So apparently the people we're supposed to get permission from before we do it, we told them about it after we did it.
Yeah, that's not the same thing. So is he trying to claim there's some issue of self-defense here? I'm not getting what
he's referring to the War Powers Act. I don't know.
So I mean, I'm not an expert in this. That's why I'm putting this out there. But I think you can forgo Congress authorization if there's imminent danger, self-defense sort of a situation, which is clearly not the case here. Am I misunderstanding this?
No. And Senator Chris Murphy, I'll show this now. He is a Democrat. He points out, I was briefed on intelligence last week. Iran posed no imminent threat of attack to the United States. Iran was not close to building a deliverable nuclear weapon. The negotiations Israel scuttled with their strikes held the potential for success. He's basically saying the same thing Tulsi Gabbard said, but she moonwalked away from for her own political ambition. But that's Chris Murphy. And by the way, there's plenty of Republicans who are now pounding their chest, going with our dear leader, who have said the same thing in the past. I mean, obviously, there's plenty of Republicans who have been, itching for war forever, Lindsey Graham, etc. But there's Republicans who have said, yeah, no, Iran's not close, but now they're going along with Trump. And Trump we trust. That's basically the answer. I mean, it's just. So
they went from not close a week ago to all of a sudden having the ability to drop a bomb. That makes no sense.
And let's get to some of the unintended consequences, because I don't think Trump has the brain span here to actually think of this stuff. So this is Dmitry Medvedev. He is the Deputy Chair, Security Council for Russia. What have the Americans accomplished with their midnight hammered strikes on the 3 nuclear sites. Number 1, critical infrastructure of the nuclear fuel cycle appears to have been unaffected or sustained only minor damage. I mean, that kind of checks out with what the New York Times is reporting. There's also aerial shots, which we'll show you, that seem to show some damage, but not complete obliteration, as Trump called it. Number 2, the enrichment of nuclear material, and now we could say it outright, the future production of nuclear weapons will continue. Okay, so sounds like we're making the situation worse. Number 3, a number of countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their own nuclear warheads. Russia is an ally of Iran. So is China. This is from, I don't know who put this out there, but I checked it out, and this is actual legitimate aerial shots. A lot of people are asking what we see in this image. The 2 orange circles show where the impacts were. 3 holes at each circle, making it 6 in total. There is no visible damage. If you could see that there. And a better shot here. New high-res imagery captured on June 21st suggests Iran was preparing the Fordow nuclear facility for a strike. The facility's entrance tunnels were observed being filled with earth by trucks and diggers.
Oh, shit. That's kind of wild.
Iranian sources now confirm Fordow is intact. Only 2 munitions struck surface-level access points. No deep penetration, no cascade collapse, no reactor kill. Fordow was built to withstand nuclear war. A single flyby doesn't erase hardened bunkers buried 80 meters deep behind reinforced mountain rock. This wasn't a successful strike. It was a narrative op aimed at markets, voters, and momentum. But the physics of Fordow don't bend to spin. And then you have, this seems important, before the U.S. strikes of Esfahan, Natanz, and Fordow, Maxar satellite images showed possible increase in logistics at Fordow. 16 trucks gathered on June 19th to the 20th with heavy machinery near the entrance of the main facility. And so, listen, you can't take any of this as gospel. Some of it's coming from Russia. Some of it's coming from Iran. I would say I trust Trump just as little as I trump Russia or Iran. So this is a war of attrition. They're all going to put out their own spin. But I don't believe Trump that it was completely obliterated, just like I wouldn't believe Iran if they said, all that's needed is a Band-Aid. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. They're all going to put out their own propaganda, their own spin. But based on reporting, satellite imagery, it does not look like that was completely obliterated. Not to mention, it seems that there was some logistical movement going on before Trump's attack. So we don't know if certain things were moved, if certain things, certain reinforcements happened. Also, we don't even know what the hell was down there. You cannot trust. You can't trust any of these politicians. I don't care if it's a Republican or a Democrat.
I agree.
I'm not one of these tinfoil hat, never trust the government under any circumstances. But when it comes to war and peace, trust but verify. Let's put it that way.
Trust but verify always.
Yes. So, I mean, there's a lot of other layers here. John Bolton going on CNN. He's got a war boner naturally.
For being here. Were you surprised that President Trump took such decisive action?
Well, let me say this unequivocally. I think President Trump made the right decision for America to attack Iran's nuclear weapons program.
Shocker.
Wait, hang on. Let's stop for a second. So CNN doing this reporting, decisive action. That's what this is. No mention of the fact that what he did was unconstitutional, didn't get authorization from Congress. Like things that should have been led with here that are far more important. And this is what this is. It's why is it that these guys constantly try to sort of prop up war propaganda in this way? Like, I mean, these are choices that are being made, as far as I'm concerned, that are not the correct ones.
And by the way, going back to the theme that Trump conned all of MAGA, this is what Trump said about Bolton. Trump on Bolton in 2020. If I listened to him, we would be in World War VI by now. Well,
okay, he's not wrong on that.
But you did listen to him. You listened to him. Yeah, right. You listened to AIPAC. I mean, you listened to Netanyahu.
Warmonger. Yeah. Bolton is like the biggest warmonger out there. Kissinger, maybe a hair bigger of a warmonger, but Bolton is the ultimate warmonger. No matter, he's never met a war he doesn't like or doesn't want to start. He's unbelievable, truly.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, Trump cowed. You know, they always say Trump listens to the last person in the room, whoever was the last person to talk to him. As we said, Netanyahu, by reports, attacked Iran a week or two ago against Trump, against what Trump wanted. Because Trump reportedly did want some diplomacy. But Trump has no long-term strategic. Trump just thinks in terms of news cycles, even if it could create World War III. And this could create World War III. I think a lot of people are hyperbolic sometimes, throw around World War III. But you got Russia, China. They are allies of Iran. There are other smaller countries that are with Iran. So this could create, if not World War III, some type of global conflict that involves oil.
Not to mention it's creating more terrorism too. All of that's reactionary, right?
Indeed. You got Tom Cotton, another war boner. Here's him doing a cheerleading.
What should we be prepared for in terms of a response from Iran? As you said, that they've sponsored terrorism for nearly half a century. I mean, what should we be prepared for?
I think we have to be prepared for Iran to retaliate. And I join the president in his warning to the supreme leader of Iran that if he targets Americans, the military force he will see will make last night look like child's play. We have troops in the region. Iran has targeted Americans around the world.
So this is so stupid. So stupid.
So, Tina, this goes to what you said before. Note, I mean, that's not surprising what Tom Cotton said. He's a major war hawk.
Not surprising. Yeah.
But the broadcast news anchor, who gets paid way too much, he's not challenging the intelligence. He's not challenging the constitutionality. He's not pointing out that you guys have been saying this for 30 years. He's advancing the narrative for how should we expect Iran to retaliate. This is what the media does.
That is the problem, though. It's part and parcel to the problem. We have a very serious media problem in this country. You and I know this. We've both worked at mainstream sites. There's something to be said about, turning newsrooms into for-profit institutions that has permanently damaged the American psyche. Like, I don't know how you unring this bell, quite frankly, because people were always trained to trust, trust the news, right? We get information. We vet it with first source. We vet it with the second source. We can't vet it with the second source. Maybe we don't publish it. Like, there are ethics that were followed for a long time, and you could trust that. And all of that's gone by the wayside. And this is happening with not little independent outlets. This is happening at big outlets. More than half of the New York Times staff is now op-ed pages. Are you shitting me? Half of those op-ed pages should be removed, and that money should be given to hardcore investigative journalists. But they don't want to do that, but because that costs them more money to do actual investigation is expensive.
Speaking of actual investigation, welcome new Status Coup member D. Cook just signed up. As I said in the beginning, we go live on Sundays mostly to grow our paid membership. I haven't been pushing it that much today because we're in the middle. We just launched a war, so I want to stay serious and not be promotional. However, we do need to grow. We're about to change topics to Tina and our incredible coverage on the ground. Tina got shot. Other journalists have got shot. And don't let them lie to you. These are not.
Shot. Let's be clear. We were all getting shot. They were.
These are not like non-lethal bullets. These are not less lethal.
They're still lethal. Yeah.
You could get killed if you get shot point blank by a rubber bullet. I saw at Standing Rock, a protester got shot in the head by a rubber bullet. It damn near looked like his scalp blew off. I do not know what happened to him ultimately. He was gravely injured. I don't think he died, but I don't think he remained intact either. We're going to show you images of a friend of ours who has freelanced for Status Coup in the past. Nick Stern, he's a journalist, a video journalist. He got shot in the thigh. The doctor told him they were treating it like it was a real bullet because that's how bad the injury was. Yeah. And his leg looked, Tina, you saw it. It looked like his muscles were hanging out.
The muscles were hanging out at one point. I was in the ER with him till 2 a.m. that night. It was terrible.
So we need to grow our paid membership, not just to expand Status Coup, but to have people like Tina and others on the ground to pay them because you can't rely on CNN or local news. The local news is basically showing aerial shots of what ICE was doing. they're not actually on the ground in the nitty-gritty showing scenes that literally look like they're out of a war zone because they don't want to do that. And then they have the temerity to reach out to Tina or us and basically ask for our footage for free.
It's like it's ridiculous.
Now we're talking. New member Celestias just signed up. Let's keep it going.
Observed. Yeah.
All right. Before we move on from the Iran topic, because obviously this is the big news of the day, I want to show a few more things quickly because it's just crazy. And by the way, more unintended consequences. This is from Jeremy Scahill of Drop Site News. He reports Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says he is going to Moscow and will meet with Putin tomorrow. So, yeah. And now Putin, they do have nukes. And I think Putin's a little crazier than maybe he was 20 years ago, if you haven't noticed. I want to play this also. This is the progressive representation on cable news. So this is who CNN bills as a progressive. Listen to what Van Jones had to say on Trump bombing Iran.
He's buying himself some time in some room. I was also in the Holy Land very recently. I think progressives underestimate how dangerous Iran is. Iran is not a normal country. Normal countries don't blind women because they showed some hair. They don't empower little gangs and proxies to surround a country and fire rockets and rape people. So Iran, the two things are clear. The what, they cannot have a bomb, and the why, because they say death to America, death to Israel, and death to all the Jews. One of those should offend you if you're progressive. At least one should offend you. And so the question, though, is the who and the how. Is Israel going to take out this nuclear capacity by dropping people there who blow it up? Or is America going to take it out by dropping a bomb that blows it up? But the what and the why are clear, and I think progressives should get on board with that. We cannot have a nuclear-armed Iran. I was in the region. You were in the region.
Fuck.
That's CNN's progressive. Occasionally they'll have Nina Turner on there, but for the most part,
is Van Jones a hardcore Zionist? That's the only thing I can come up with. Why would he?
He just said he was in the Holy Land, so apparently.
Well, that's where all that stuff is.
First of all,
from.
I don't even know where to start. Let's unpack this. Number one.
Yeah, that was a lot, dude. That was.
Number one, Van Jones.
Wow.
You just believe what they're telling you?
All that stuff. Yeah.
He's saying Iran can't have a bomb. Okay, but you just believe that they were 5 minutes away from it? You're believing our dear leader Trump and his, merry-go-round of idiots around him? You're just trusting that they had to do this? That's number one. Number two, there's a big difference. There's a big difference between something you deem a deplorable way of life. He's citing accurately that, they oppress women.
Yeah, those things are wrong. Nobody's defending that, but that doesn't mean we get to bomb them.
Because there's a lot of countries that treat women that way, or oppressive, or their leaders rape.
We're doing to immigrants right now in this country. Are you serious? No country is crystal clear and clean. No country, none, zero. Right. Every country out there does deplorable shit. Some worse than others, of course, but that doesn't mean we're going bombing all of them.
When he's saying that they say death to America, death to Israel, et cetera, that is true, but that's not a license to launch an illegal war. To launch a war, according to the Constitution, Congress must, vote to authorize it under the basis of you have an imminent attack, merely for defensive posture. That's what was written in the Constitution, that all of these fucking phonies pretend, Ted Cruz walks around with his pocket-sized Constitution. They don't give a shit about the Constitution. They wipe their ass with the Constitution. Right. And I think a lot of the Constitution you should wipe your ass with it because it's badly outdated, a lot of its provisions, and we should update it. But that's another story. But what he's saying on there, you can't start bombing countries that you find deplorable. Because then there's a lot of things by that calculus, then the rest of the world has reason to bomb us.
It's not the solution, let alone the progressive solution to the problem. So for him to say that this is the solution to these problems is absolutely insane to me. That's ridiculous.
And by the way, you are further red pilling sensible people, because not all of the people who voted for Trump are hardcore MAGA. There was a lot of independents who voted for him just based on inflation and prices being too high, thinking like, all right, I don't like him, but prices were lower under him, so I'll just go back with him. There was a good amount of that. But when you normalize, when the progressive on stage normalizes it by saying, oh, they're radical and they hate the Jews and they, death to America, so they can't be allowed to have a bomb, and you totally disregard, we broke the law, this was an illegal strike, Congress didn't authorize it, there is no actual evidence or intelligence that they're close to a bomb or even trying. As Tulsi Gabbard said, they stopped in the early 2000s. You normalize this. It's just crazy.
It's a total normalization. Also, I would imagine a lot of that rhetoric is coming from this notion that they have issues with Israel, so ergo, we hate all Jews, which is definitely not the case. That's always part of the conversation, too. So much of this is entirely reactionary based on the geopolitical problems in the region, right? I mean, we've all seen the videos also, Israeli right-wing settlers running around saying death to Arabs, which is also really horrifying stuff. So this is...
And can I make a point? If we're going to start going on the basis of we get to bomb and start wars with any country we find deplorable, couldn't Mexico have then tried to start a war with us after the president said they're all rapists, they're rapists, they're kidnappers, they're murderers? We have white men shooting up black churches and killing 9 parishioners. Could an African country start bombing us? Because
that's what I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, Jordan. So much of this is just reactionary politics. At some point, we need to stop the reaction, right? Everybody calm the fuck down. This is ridiculous. I can't believe Van Jones said that. Has he gone way off there into the... I haven't listened to him in a long time, so...
He gets handsomely rewarded for his corporate speeches. So who knows?
That was so bad. It was that is absolutely not the progressive viewpoint here whatsoever. And no progressive should not get on board with supporting a president that just did something highly unconstitutional. Where was that conversation from shows? If I had been on that show, I would be like, can we first have a conversation about the fact that Trump just did this on his own? Because that's not okay.
And also, I want to show you, Vance, this was actually a good question, credit where credit is due. Meet the Press challenged Vance on, hey, your own, Tulsi Gabbard said they're not trying to build a weapon. Here was Vance basically mansplain what Tulsi meant.
Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard said in March that, quote, Iran is not building a nuclear weapon. Democratic Senator Mark Warner, the vice chair of the Intelligence Committee, said he was briefed on Monday that, quote, the intelligence hasn't changed. So why launch this strike now? Has the intelligence changed, Mr. Vice President?
Well, a couple of things about that, Kristen. So what Tulsi said back in March is that Iran was producing highly enriched uranium that was only consistent with them wanting to build a nuclear weapon. There's, of course, an open question about whether they were weeks away, whether they were months away, but they were way too close to a nuclear weapon for the comfort of the President of the United States, which is why he took this action.
That's
Jordan, this is reminding me of the run up to the Iraqi war where the media had these people on, where these people lied through their fucking teeth with whatever shit they wanted to say, and it went unchecked, grew. Then everybody just believed it, and it was all bullshit. There were no weapons of mass destruction. Iran has been at the brink of a bomb for 30 years now. That's what they've been saying. This is... are we really going to do this again? Are we?
Yeah, we are. And who knows, by next Sunday, who the hell knows? We might be in a broader war.
I mean, a million Americans died right? In that war? Is that the correct count? Am I right? I mean, it was a lot of, how?
And to be clear, I think there's another element of this that I don't think people are entertaining. Because I think a lot of people with Trump, so many abnormal things that under previous leaders would have been the end of their political life have just been normalized. When he called John McCain a loser for being captured in war, people were saying then, oh, that's
God,
the
I
end of his
forgot about that.
That's the end of his campaign. When the
And it wasn't.
when the Access Hollywood tape came out with him saying, I basically, I grab him by the pee. That's the end of him. He won. So, and people said, oh, if he loses, he'll leave. And then January 6th happened. I don't think a lot of people are taking seriously Trump's jokes, his wink, wink, that like, oh,
Right.
maybe I will serve a third term. Well, there is something called wag the dog. People try to stay in power by launching wars. If you think that Donald Trump, just through his own megalomania, his own insanity, his own personality disorder and textbook narcissistic personality, whatever, you don't think that he would launch a full-scale war to say, this is an extraordinary circumstance and I need to stay in power?
Oh, 100%. That's where this is building up to. He's not going to leave if we make it that far. I mean, people keep bringing up like, wait till the midterms. I'm like, midterms? What midterms? Like, do people not recognize how very serious of a constitutional crisis this country is in right now? The fact that he has sent military into California, and that, I don't know, maybe we should put this on the screen. There was a motion in our city council last week to look at what defenses we have in the city to keep federal forces out in the event that they invade us. Like, that is where we are at. I should have sent this to you to put on the screen. I have it on my BlueSky if you want to read it, but this was an actual motion last week in front of the city council. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, right now you've got them staying on federal areas, right? So they're at the detention center, the DHS,
soon,
whatnot. But that'll change. I'm talking about the troops now, not the ICE agents, obviously, just in case that's not clear.
Before we end on Iran, we cannot forget the AIPAC part of this. AIPAC has been pushing this forever and ever. This is Thomas Massie, the one Republican with a little courage who has spoken out against Trump. This is him this morning.
What he promised us was we would put America first. And I think there are still voices in this administration. You've still got J.D. Vance. You've still got Tulsi Gabbard. You still RFK Jr. You still got calmer heads that could prevail.
They were not persuasive in this case, clearly.
Well, somebody was persuasive. AIPAC is very persuasive. For instance, the Israeli lobby in Congress. If you look at my colleagues' feeds now, they all look the same. They're all tweeting the same message that we've got to support Israel and we've got to do this.
Basically, they got their AIPAC talking points and they're going with it. So it's incredibly dangerous. We are, of course, we cover mostly what's going on in domestic politics, but there's really no separation between domestic politics and this, because what Trump did is essentially, basically create a war that's directly going to affect everything domestically, because I think this is going to take so much of the attention away from all the horrendous stuff he's doing domestically.
You're right. Maybe that's why. Maybe that was even part of his calculus when he decided to do this. It wouldn't surprise me if that turned out to be the case.
All right, moving topics. And again, we need you. So as we play some of these clips of Tina's great on-the-ground reporting, please, cherry on top. All we're asking for is $5 a month to support us. StatusCoup.com/join. $5 a month to support our on-the-ground reporting. Here is some of Tina's great on-the-ground reporting. And then we'll get her thoughts.
Whoa! Stop! Jesus, you just hit me! I just got hit with the left lethal. Yeah, I'm okay. All right, I got hit with a left lethal. I'm okay. That's what the Kevlar is for. I have Kevlar tights on under my pants, so it didn't penetrate anything. We're about to get kennel this way. Come this way.
All right, I'll be right back because I got to go help put my terrible twos daughter to her nap. She's going nuts upstairs. But Tina, I'll be right back. Set the scene for everything that was going on. and explain why you were very lucky because you had the proper protection
Kevlar on. I'm doing an ad for Kevlar.
But to be clear, if you didn't have that on, which most 99% of protesters don't, and most journalists don't have, I mean, that could do serious damage. I'll be right back.
No, it can do. All right, that's fine. So it can do serious damage. And the reason I bought Kevlar tights actually was, 7 or 8 years ago, and I was at other protesters where people were getting hit with less lethals, and I wanted to protect myself. So I went in line and I discovered this great thing called Kevlar fabric that they make. They make jackets out of it. I have a jacket too, tights, whatever. But when you get hit with a less lethal, it's not able to penetrate the skin. You end up with just kind of a really nasty bruise on your leg. So I was glad I had those on. I got hit. I was able to carry on. I got home and I sent, I think, Jordan a photo of the bruise. It was, not too terrible, actually. But to give you another example of what can happen, Nick Stern, who was hit in the leg by less lethal, I think it was a stun grenade. The LASD was using stun grenades that day. And let's be clear, they're all using them out of policy. The stun grenades are supposed to be shot into the air. They're not supposed to be hitting people. They're very dangerous. These 30 millimeter cannon less lethals and the rubber bullets are not supposed to be shot directly at people. They're supposed to be shot at the ground. But they shoot them at people. They all do this out of policy. But to get back to Nick, when we were in the ER, initially when he said he'd been injured and I looked at his injury, I said, we have to go to the hospital. This is bad. He didn't want to go. He finally was like, okay, let's go. When we got there, the doctor was basically saying that he was treating the wound as a gunshot wound. And I said, no, he wasn't shot with a gun. It's a less lethal munition. And the doctor, I'll never forget, the doctor looked at me and he said, no, we have to treat this as a gunshot wound. I need to do a CAT scan, which was a good thing he did because you could not see that buried beneath his open wound was this giant canister from the stun grenade. It had gone underneath the muscle and it had been embedded as shrapnel in his leg. So they ended up having to do surgery the next morning to remove that. One thing I also want to mention about why we have so many various different law enforcement agencies participating in this crowd control is because they all operate under different policies. So the Los Angeles Police Department they've been stopped from using tear gas. They can no longer shoot tear gas at crowds. The Sheriff's Department, however, is allowed to use tear gas, and they do. And the California Highway Patrol is allowed to use tear gas, and they do. So that's why these two entities had come in to help with the dispersal the last few nights because they are allowed to use munitions that the LAPD cannot. I think for that reason, it's important that we get injunctions against these other law enforcement agencies from using the same munitions because they're dangerous. They call them less lethals, but clearly they are more lethal. Another time I remember seeing a guy shot in the head, kind of what Jordan was talking about at Standing Rock. A guy got shot in the head in front of me with a rubber bullet. It hit him in the head. He was kind of pretty much knocked unconscious. Turns out 2 days later, after they got him to the hospital, I find out that he had a brain bleed from the less lethal. So it had cracked his skull, caused a brain bleed, and he was in the ICU. So again, these things are very dangerous. Anyway, so as we're going to wait for Jordan to get back here, never mind.
So speaking of,
never mind.
I want to also show you, this is trigger warning if you get a little nauseous. This is the injury for a video journalist that has worked with Status Coup in the past.
I was just talking about that. Yeah, show so people can see this. Like, show it. So
that is the quote less lethal damage. Okay, that's a 40 millimeter ammunition.
No, this was actually, I believe, a stun grenade that penetrated him underneath the skin. Did Nick send you the photo of what they pulled out of his leg? So from looking at, this is where the impact munition went in. You cannot see that buried underneath that wound is this giant canister, or plastic shell, I don't know what you call it, from the munition. Did he send you the photo of that?
Yeah, I don't have it on me, but I know.
Okay, hang on. I can pull it up and put it up to my camera, I guess, because I want people to get an idea of just how giant this thing was. And the reason we knew about this is because they treated it like a gunshot wound and they gave him a CAT scan. There was no way you could see this from the outside. Hang on, I'm looking through my library, see if I can find it.
So, by the way,
oh, here it is. Here it is. Okay, so I'm going to put this up to my camera so you can kind of see. Okay, that is the size, and you can see that it is almost intact. That was inside the wound under the muscle. You can't even see it from the outside.
And this is another problem. We talked about the problems with the media in basically perpetuating the bullshit with Iran. This is another problem with how the media reports on this, because they just report less lethal ammunition or non-lethal and don't actually give you the context. Actually, this shit could be lethal. It could do damage to your organs. It could kill you. The rubber bullets have killed people.
Taking people's eyes out. People have lost eyes. There was the journalist that lost her eye in, was it New York in 2020? Where she got hit direct. They're very dangerous. So when I go out, just so people get an idea, I look like one of these weirdos. I have a gas mask. I have ballistic goggles. Don't wear just regular goggles. Mine are ballistic, so they will protect from gunfire. Obviously a helmet. My Kevlar tights or leggings. I have a ballistic 3-2 level Kevlar vest. And I also have a Kevlar fabric jacket. So if I look like a big giant Pillsbury Doughboy, it's because I'm protected. But it's the only reason I can go in these environments and film what I film and not get completely destroyed.
But this is important that people understand this, because this is not new. When I was at Standing Rock, this kind of shit was happening. Police were doing this based along with an oil company. They were working together at Standing Rock. The only difference between Standing Rock and the LA ice raids that Tina was covering, at least there were more, the whole media was focused on the ice raids for about a week. All the media was covering it. So at the very least, cops knew there was some eyes on them. You know, they didn't seem to care because we have an authoritarian president. But at Standing Rock, I mean, I don't mean this arrogantly, I was pretty much the only like national reporter there for a while. Other than that, it was documentary filmmakers.
Yeah,
it was like
maybe
French.
Unicorn Riot was there, I think, Raby, but that's it, yeah.
Other than myself, Unicorn Riot, Amy Goodman was there for a short while. They were doing whatever the hell they wanted because it was a blip on the radar and there was a presidential election going on. I got shot in the calf by a rubber bullet. Luckily, it was my calf and not nowhere else. It fucking killed me for 2 weeks. I had trouble walking.
Yeah.
But I saw someone
a nasty fucking bruise too. Yeah.
I still have a scar on my calf from that. There was somebody I saw get shot in the head. I think it was a rubber bullet. It looked like a lot of his scalp got taken off. So the point of this, that this is going on, they're doing this illegal behavior because they're not supposed to be shooting people point blank range. This is happening under a Democratic mayor. The mayor could rein in. I mean, this is your right.
She doesn't want to rein them in. That's the problem, isn't it? There's this weird. So people have different reasons for believing different things. So I'm not trying to make some sort of blanket statement about the Democratic establishment in general, but I do think it's really hard for a lot of these folks to put their heads around cops behaving in this manner, right? In their minds, they believe still in these liberal institutions, and they still have this sort of hero idea, I think, about who policemen are, like the kind of individuals that join the police force. They do it for the good reasons, right? They do it because they want to catch the bad guys. They do it because they have some sort of, higher moral calling. And meantime, the reality isn't that at all. Like you and I know that because we've seen it firsthand. I've seen in the last, decade and a half, and Anat could talk about this too, about how a lot of right-wing extremist groups have purposefully infiltrated law enforcement. In fact, Mike German just wrote this great book about Mike German is an ex-FBI agent who works at the Brennan Center of Justice. He just published a book 2 months ago that's not getting any attention because of all the other chaos that's going on, but it's called Policing White Supremacy. And it talks very much about this, how you've had these extremists infiltrate these institutions with intention because they know that that's where power lies, right? But in the meantime, you still have this group of Democratic establishment individuals that just can't fucking rise to the occasion because it doesn't fit the narrative of what they truly believe at the end of the day. And they need to lose their religion, so to speak, I think. I mean, it's why you're seeing all these crazy conspiracy theories about like all of this going on isn't actually DHS agents. No, it is DHS. Our government agency is under a Trump regime. They are being told to put on masks and to cover up everything and kidnap people. That is what's happening. Yep. And that is actually scarier than the fact that it maybe might be, you know, militias or something.
But to be clear, although this is happening under Trump, this police terrorism happened under Democratic presidents. They were out of control in Ferguson when Obama was president. During Black Lives Matter protests, police were shooting flashbang grenades, tear gas, which, by the way, was outlawed after World War I. It's a chemical weapon. It's not allowed in war.
It's
somehow the NYPD, the LAPD, the Chicago police.
LAPD cannot use gas. LAPD cannot use gas, which is why they have the CHP. And so people are, I'm trying to explain this stuff because it gets very confusing as to how all this plays out. Like I had one woman on BlueSky this morning telling me I was lying because they said it was CHP lobbing tear gas. No, I'm not lying. It is the CHP. I know that sounds weird. Why is the California Highway Patrol in the middle of downtown LA dispersing a crowd? Well, this is why, because they can use tear gas and the LAPD cannot. That is the reality. So Newsom, Karen Bass, whatever, they have these internal conversations where they decide how they're going to react to these protests that are going on. And this is the methods that they come up with. Well, LAPD has an injunction against it. They can't do it. CHP does not. So while you were gone, this is one of the cases I was making. So with the LA Press Club, who I'm a member of, longtime member of, Status Coup, and a couple other publications we've signed on, we're asking for an injunction against them using these munitions against press, obviously. So not just the LAPD, because that is already in place, but against the LASD and also DHS. I don't know if you've talked about that on the show yet. So
no, we're going to get to that.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to get to the lawsuit, but I want to show because we have some new viewers in the last week, so they might have not even seen this footage. Some of this footage shot by yours truly over here, Tina, at risk to herself. She might have all the Kevlar in the world, but you could still get hurt. If you didn't know this was LA, it looks like Fallujah. It looks like Baghdad. I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but this looks like a war zone. And this is allowed. And it happens in New York. It happens in Chicago, LA, Ferguson, Milwaukee, Cleveland, all over America. Because the police, why some might say, don't we have a general strike already? Because this is what they will do if the proletariat fights back. The police exist in many ways to protect capital. I'm not saying all police are bad. I'm not saying all police are bad, but you have a major testosterone problem in police. You have a major cowboy mentality among police. You got a lot of steroids and other maniacs, steroidal people in police. You have, as Tina has broken before, you have straight on Nazis that are policemen and are part of white supremacist groups.
And before you play the clip, let me say this: what's made it so much worse is that there was a portion of the FBI that was tasked with actually monitoring police forces, local police forces, for them doing shit like this. And of course, Trump got rid of that. It wasn't robust enough as it should have been in the first place. I mean, you had consent decrees in Baltimore, a handful of other cities where this stuff had been going on. He erased that, right? So the one thing we did have that was maybe moving in the direction that it should be going in is now gone. So
right.
Do what you want with that information.
All right, let me show you some more and we'll get Tina's response. This was some of her coverage to the ICE raids, which, by the way, the ICE raids are still going on in LA and elsewhere. They've snagged American citizens too, so it's not just undocumented.
No, it's not. In fact, before you play it, let me say this too, because I think people need to understand what's going on. I don't think mainstream media and cable news is sort of being clear on what's happening here. They're creating traps, literal traps for these individuals to walk into so they can nab them, right? So what started all of the civil unrest in Los Angeles is DHS, ICE, whatever, Border Patrol, these groups decided they were going to start nabbing people that were coming in for their update hearings, right? So these are people that are known to be in the country. They're not citizens, but they are going about becoming citizens in the legal correct way. the government knows that they're here, right? So they're coming in for their check-ins. And what ICE and DHS is doing is nabbing them at the check-ins. What made this even more inflammatory is after that trap was set, the agents then called family members and said, come pick up your loved ones. And when those loved ones showed up, they arrested them too. So this is, let's call this what this is. They are creating these traps with which to grab people that are trying to do the right thing. And these are not criminals. I'm really tired of that report being told. No, they are not just going after criminals. That's just fucking bullshit. Maybe the first list of 100 people they put out there were criminals. I would question whether that's entirely true, given the really shoddy intelligence that has been shown for deporting some of these folks to El Salvador. I mean, it's
if you want to have a contest, if you want to have a contest of criminals in America, I'd put 100 undocumented people in a room with 100 MAGA people. Let's see who the criminals are.
Yeah, look at the per capita data. You're more likely to be murdered by a U.S. citizen than you are an immigrant. It's just not even, there's not even a contest here. It is just a bullshit. It's a bullshit conversation to justify what they want to do. What they want to do is deport people. These are white nationalists. They have always been anti-immigration. You can trace the roots of this back to World War II, like the original America First movement, right, with Charles Limbaugh. People forget how incredibly anti-immigrant this country was during World War II. The reason, and in fact, I'm going to go say this, the reason Israel exists is because we wouldn't take Jewish refugees into this fucking country. That is the reality. We had quota limits where you just couldn't come, and they just didn't care what was going to happen. So much is based on understanding how anti-immigrant, even though this country is, supposedly a country of immigration, right? Give me your huddled masses longing to be free. It's nonsense as far as most of this is concerned. So their ideal at the end of the day is not just to nab the people that are here illegally, it's to nab anybody that they can, that is brown, that is from Mexico, and deport them. That is the fucking reality, and people need to understand
and to also distract their base and masses by identifying the other, which is true and tested throughout history. Find another and then persecute that other as we fuck these people up the ass economically. Now, would you let me promote your shit? Jesus Christ, sorry. Here we go.
I just want people to understand this.
So a couple things. Number one, not to blow smoke up your ass, but kudos to you. You deserve a lot of praise, frankly, awards. Because to be clear, and obviously this is self-promotional because you're doing this for Status Coup, but like, do you see this footage on CNN? When they're not trying to, when they're not trying. No, what I mean is, do you see this footage originating on CNN?
Yeah.
Do you see this footage originating on MSNBC? Once upon a time, there was Vice News got down and dirty, and they did stuff with covering ISIS abroad, and they got really, really gruesome, horrifying, and they did brave work. But I don't even know if they're around anymore. But you do not see this kind of footage originating on broadcast news outlets, cable news outlets, for a variety of reasons. One, they don't want to show the true gruesome nature of our militarized police. Two, I don't think they want to actually take the risk of doing it because it is risky, no matter how protected you are. Like Tina said, she wears the gas mask and protective gear. It's still dangerous. They're shooting flashbang grenades, tear gas, rubber bullets. We're going to show you other footage where they're literally, maybe 10 yards shooting at protesters with rubber bullets. This is really, really gruesome, incredible footage you got, which is why support us. We're not just sitting out here bloviating out of our assholes like 99% of other YouTube channels. We're on the ground. If I didn't have a newborn, which my wife is going to kill me soon because I've gone live longer than I told her I would. If I didn't have a newborn and a toddler, I'd be out there too. But you're out there. Ashley, our reporter that we just hired, is out there. John Farina has been out there covering these protests, the Palestine protests, for almost 2 years. He's got beaten up by police. John Farina, for us, is the one that got that historic footage on January 6th of the cop's head rammed into the door. He almost broke 2 ribs, and he still tells me his ribs hurt. 4 years later, from the MAGA mob crushing him, but he's still got that footage. Tunnel. So this is why independent, on-the-ground reporting matters. I want to show another clip and then get your thoughts, Tina. This is the footage of that video journalist friend of ours getting shot. You don't see him getting shot, but you could hear him saying, I'm getting hit. But it's just crazy because this looks like a Call of Duty game. It looks like a video game, but this is really what's going on. And you're not seeing this because they don't want to pay for it and they're too scared to do it themselves. You're not seeing this on, mainstream broadcast networks. Here we go. If I could find it.
It was in Compton.
Yeah, I think I got it.
Don't rub it.
Oh, fuck. 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 Getting hit. Getting hit. Ugh.
We're pressed. Press. Please don't shoot.
We are literally on press here. Where do you want us to go? Go out. Don't shoot us. All right, we are on press. Okay, can you let us go without shooting us?
And real quick, shout out, new Status Coup member Jesse, new Status Coup member Omega, new Status Coup member Celestias. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. D signed up. Thank you. Hey, What's the rest of yours excuse? If you don't have $5 a month, no shame. I understand tough times for a lot of people, and you might not have it $5 a month. But for those of you sitting on the fence, we're talking 16 cents a day. That's what $5 a month is. I can't print money in the backyard to pay Tina, but she needs to be paid and paid well. If there was a God, I could bring her on full time. We're trying to get bigger funding. So please support us, because you're not just supporting two people talking at a studio. Yes, we do that, but we are, to be clear, the leading independent outlet on the ground covering these types of stories. And it's not just when shit's breaking, literally breaking. Right. Tina was one of the few reporters to go to Central California to cover the lithium battery fire. If you don't know, there was a massive lithium battery fire that created a chemical fucking, I don't want to say mushroom cloud, but a chemical mess.
Not in this environment, but yeah.
Yes. Created a chemical mess right next to what is known as the Salad Bowl of America. All of the farms in Central California that provide 70% of the United States vegetables are lettuce, broccoli. One area is 90% of artichokes. Driscoll strawberries, which is like the monopoly on strawberries. They make their strawberries right on farms that have been testing has shown the soil is contaminated by this lithium fire. Did you hear about it on CNN? Fuck no. The New York Times did one piece on it and moved on. People are sick as far as 50 to 75 miles away. Tina was on the ground for us. I've been to Flint, Michigan 21 times since 2016. I published a book on it last year. Roll off your shoulder. I won 3 book awards for that book. Thank you I would have never been able to go to Flint, much less break all these stories, much less write a book that won these awards, if you guys didn't fund me to keep going. So we're not just sitting here, talking the talk.
No,
we're not chasing.
And we're not getting rich either. Let's be honest.
No. And by the way,
you and I do what we do because we love our jobs. Let's be honest.
But let's be clear. We'd be a lot more profitable if we just said, fuck it. Let's put Joe Rogan and Ben Shapiro in a bunch of headlines and do reactionary bullshit. Or like these other channels, there's a lot of channels doing 25 videos on the Young Turks. It's great popcorn, right? And I got plenty that I could say about the Young Turks and Cenk Uygur, and specifically.
What's the point? Who cares?
By the way, I know things about Cenk that could bury that man. Career-wise,
you used to work for him.
I could bury that man if I wanted to, but I got bigger fish to fry than that narcissist.
Falling apart.
Right. So the point is, we could make more money if we covered bullshit and just did, joined in the food fights of fighting with other YouTube channels. Yeah. But we actually want to cover.
I would not be sitting here if that's the kind of journalism you were doing. Let's put it that way.
Right. So we actually want to cover what matters. But I want to point out in that clip. First of all, why are they shooting at a moving car, Tina? They're shooting at a moving car, which is very dangerous. And by the way,
they did that more than once, by the way.
Do you see these row of, it looks like SEAL Team 6. There's like 20 cops with their fucking yellow guns. I don't even know what they're shooting. Those look like
pepper bullets.
They look like a militarized police force.
Red pepper gas, like pepper bullets. And then when they hit, the impact, it releases like a tear gas effect. They're really terrible.
But to be clear, just so we're accurate, of course, there are instances where people are throwing water bottles at police.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
There's instances where some of the protesters are, hurling things that could hurt the police. So it's not completely like they're completely not under, the police are getting targeted in some cases. But it seems to me overwhelmingly from the visual evidence, the police are not under any imminent threat. They're just going ham on protesters.
I mean, all of that's just reactionary. So that's what happens. They go ham, and then a handful of protesters start picking up the spent, less munitions canisters. They start throwing them back. In some cases, if they've got the stomach for it, they'll pick up a tear gas canister that's still going in. They'll chuck it back. I mean, all of that's just very reactionary. This was a lot of violence. So let me back up and tell you, Nick and I were in Compton, California. So this is adjacent to Paramount, California, where DHS ICE had come in and done their first raid at a Home Depot, mass raid at a Home Depot. So they came in there and they just were swiping up all of the workers. and people were there witnessing it.
I just want to interrupt you, and not to be rude. I want people to understand part of why they're going into Home Depots is Trump's Joseph Goebbels, Stephen Miller. He told ICE, you're not rounding up enough people.
Round up more.
He said, to hell with having a strategy or targeted arrests. Just go into Home Depots, go into 7-Eleven and round up more people. Go on.
Yeah. So here in California, the Home Depots have day labor that you can hire. And in many cases, Home Depots even set up like a system for it. And they, have tables and whatnot, whatever. So this particular Home Depot had a lot of day labor. So that's what happened. What you had protesters there from jump. They were trying to intervene. Some of them may have probably even been shoppers. I don't know, trying to stop this from happening. But the crowd just kept growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And reactionary, shit started popping off on both sides. ICE obviously left. LA Sheriff's Department came in, started fighting with the so this was going on for 8 or 9 hours, and I'm not exaggerating. So you guys are just seeing a snippet of 8 and 9 hours. I shot so much insane stuff that day. But they had set up the skirmish line, which was further back from the street. The street wasn't ever roped off. So you still had people driving down the street and around doing their business next to the shopping mall there. So that particular woman had just come driving into the parking lot and they just lit her car up. I caught the tail end of it. But by the time the car was I was worried that she'd been shot because it was kind of she's what the, doing this sort of thing. And then the only way out is to go back that way. And they lit her up again. But they did that more than once. You had a snippet of that one car, the black car where the dumpster fire was going off next to it. So the beginning of that, I want to make this clear so people understand, that dumpster fire was actually started from a munition canister. Tear gas is highly flammable, highly, highly flammable. So they had lit this dude's car up, and one of the munitions, I don't know if it was a pepper ball, a canister, a stem, or whatever, one of them, they were using so many things that day, bounced off the car into the dumpster, and it ignited into this insane fire in the dumpster. Turns out the guy that was inside the vehicle was a disabled person that had to use a walker. The sheriff's department literally handed him his walker and he limped away. But he had not been participating in the protest whatsoever. He had been sitting in the car for probably 3 or 4 hours that I had been there, never got out of the car, just was sitting there watching this whole thing in the shopping center parking lot. And for whatever reason, the sheriff's department started to light up his car. I was like, why are they shooting this guy? I have no idea. Anyway,
and
it was insanity.
To be clear, I want to make an important point. I don't want to do a false equivalency because obviously Trump has unleashed, we were already kind of authoritarianist in this country, and there was a lot of fascism going on. I believe Standing Rock was a lot of fascism. You had I call the oil police working for the oil companies, and that was under a Democratic president. But as Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, did his unofficial launch to his 2028 campaign, his whole little "I'm the strong man" going up against Trump, and the media was eating it up. Well, this is his police force mostly. He's the governor of California. He could rein them in because the people doing this mostly are LAPD or LA County Sheriff. You also have Huntington Beach Police. I mean, so this is happening under a Democratic governor.
Talk about that for a second when you're done here, because I want to talk about that.
My point is, yes, Trump is awful, but let's not pretend that on the local level that Democratic mayors or Democratic city council members or Democratic governors, that they are reining in. They are cheering this. They are cheering this type of terrorism.
In a weird way, what's surprising to some people about this is that both Newsom, Karen Bass, all these individuals had said that they were not going to support ICE or DHS or the Border Patrol in their raids at all, that we're not doing it, we're sanctioned. But they sort of, are, if they are engaging in the sort of crowd control that you are seeing them engage in front of the federal detention. That first video was front of the federal detention center. These were individuals that were fighting directly with DHS agents that were coming out and grabbing people, shooting pepper spray, whatnot. So that was the very first night that this thing had broken out. There was very few press there. I happened to be there because I just had a bad feeling about the whole thing. And, there was anger, a lot of anger, because people's family members had literally just been entrapped and snatched off the street, and they were not given the ability to talk to them, know how they, like, it was horrifying. So I just knew that was sort of going to be a flashpoint, to call it, or something. And it was. So when the LAPD showed up and did what they did, I was actually kind of surprised, because I'm like, I thought Karen said that she's not going to support DHS. That's exactly what the LAPD is doing right now by clearing these protesters out of here. Quite frankly, if DHS had been left to fend for itself, it would have taken up a lot of their manpower that is being spent on these, kidnappings in the rest of the city. They would have had to stay there to defend their little federal space there against these protesters, right? So it does have sort of a glom-on effect, I guess would be the word for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And also, not to get too kind of distracted, but there was also in the news recently, which you got the footage. I apologize, we don't have it to show at the moment. There was also in the news that DHS was staging at the Los Angeles Dodgers, the baseball team, that they were in the parking lot hours before the baseball game, and the Dodgers were getting some type of credit for not allowing them in.
Right.
You were there, and yeah, go ahead.
The photo. I'm going to show this photo because I want people to see, because I don't think a lot of people have seen this. A lot of people have seen the aftermath of that, when there was only a handful of DHS agents or ICE agents at the very top. Or actually, some of them I think were Border Patrol, now that I'm remembering. Alphabet soup out there, but they're all engaging in the same stuff. But I want to tell you what the scene looked like before protesters showed up, before the Dodger owner had been called and said he didn't want them on the property, just so people can see how many agents there actually were. All right, let me see if I can get this clear enough without the light shining. Okay, is that kind of okay?
Yeah.
You can see, do you see, this is a whole ass battalion of fucking agents. Are you kidding me right now?
Right.
Easily 100 agents there. So,
and by the way, let's not pretend it got attention. So then the Dodgers did the right thing and said, we don't want them on our property. You think if it didn't get attention, you think if it didn't give attention, a billionaire white owner of a baseball team wouldn't have allowed DHS or ICE to stage wherever? I mean, I'm not reporting that. I'm saying I don't think most.
Yeah, I can't verify that that's true, but it certainly seems to me like, things that make you go, right? Like, really? Right. There's over 100 agents here. You're going to tell me you didn't know that they were in your parking lot? How did they get, like, what? So protesters did show up, started fighting. And I called this while this was happening. If I had been live, you would have heard me say this. I've said they're going to leave through another exit. There's multiple exits outside of the Dodger Stadium parking lot, not just gate E. There's A, there's B, there's the Vin Scully, whatever. So, which is exactly what happened, right? And they were left with, then the LAPD shows up, by the way. The LAPD was not there at jump. The one thing I can say that is just hogwash is that the LAPD stopped DHS from going into, no, they were there first. The LAPD showed up after the protesters. And then the first order of business that they engaged in was pushing the protesters back out of the parking lot area that they were saying was private property, which it is, and that they had to stay on the public side. So,
and by the way,
I don't know, man. I think everybody in the situation's lied to an extent, to be fair.
But by the way, part of why I'm pushing more of you to sign up as paid members is we want a more reliable camera person for Tina out there. Most of this, she's shooting herself. But if we could get Nick, unfortunately, got shot. We showed you.
Yeah.
He was the person doing her camera work, so he's out of commission for a while because his leg got mangled up by a non-lethal ammunition. But we want to have for Tina to be able to go live from more places. But we need a cameraman for that, and that costs money. So that's another reason. Support us if you can. I want to show also, it's not just that the police are violently attacking protesters and violently shooting at journalists, that in some cases, they see that you're a journalist. They're just shooting anyway. They're also trying to block you from filming. There was instances where they stopped you from filming.
They did. Even after other police said we were okay. So we have a state law, California Penal Code 409.7, right? That basically was passed by the California legislature because they were sort of tired of fielding these problems with local law enforcement at protests, right? So basically the law says we don't have to be, if they call an unlawful assembly, we can stay by law and way past that. They can't tell us to leave. We're allowed to film their operations as long as we don't interfere with them. We can cross a police line if that's necessary to cover what's happening, as long as we don't interfere with their operation. Like it's a whole host of protections for the press, which these guys just don't even know what it says. If they do know what it says, they knowingly violate it. So, the times I don't always push the envelope on this. Sometimes I do. That one particular night that we were live streaming, I did push it because we had been down below, and I decided to go up there because I saw the press members up there, and I figured like, hey, my thing is like, where can I get the best video footage that I can get and still be safe and still not be, because I don't want to be fighting with cops all the time. It's a hassle, right? I'd rather just do my fucking job. It's as simple as that. So we went up there. The first police officer, he said he gave us the okay. You didn't see that on screen, but he saw us and it was fine. And there were other journalists up there. All of a sudden, this guy came out of nowhere and started this argument. And I was like, we were okay to be here by, and he's like, you saw it. Like, he literally made us leave. And I'm like, you are not.
It's wonderful that I have the footage so I could just show people.
Oh, you have, all right. I didn't know you had that.
For your safety, let's go. Let's go.
For what?
Let's go.
For what?
Let's go, man.
Why am I ashamed?
Ma'am, I'm being direct order to leave.
You don't get to boss me around.
Okay. And I'm telling you, for your safety and others, I need you to leave.
It's not.
Okay? Yes, for your safety. Yes, it is.
Harm you. Unbelievable. It's not. 4097. 497 says he can film you.
I get that.
You get that, so you're breaking the law.
But you have
so
to
you
film
think you're breaking the law.
in an area where we post, okay?
That's not what it says.
Hey.
That is not what 497 says.
Well, I'm asking you to leave. I'm not going to argue anymore.
There was nothing wrong with us filming those arrests.
You can film from over there.
No, I can't. How can you see the
let's
press
go.
over there? You guys are going to face one hell of a lawsuit when this is over. How many millions of dollars have you guys cost the city of LA?
Us?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go.
Do you know how many lawsuits?
I'm not answering any questions. Let's just walk out.
$147 million. Because you guys can't abide your own laws.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
All right, sorry folks, that got a little heated. I don't know how much of that you caught. So we have a state law in California, 497, that says we are allowed to be behind police lines filming after they've called an unlawful detention, during curfew, whatever else, as long as we are in the efforts of news gathering, which is exactly what we were doing just there. So I was giving that guy a little bit of pushback because this has become a regular thing with these guys. They don't abide by the state law, and they're police. They should be abided by the state law. So anyway, those folks are getting arrested. We're not going to see that. I want to come over here. Whoa, what are you doing? Oh my God! Jesus, are you serious right now? I'm pressed! I'm pressed! Stop charging at me with your fucking horse, you crazy lunatic! Jesus Christ! We are pressed! We are allowed to be here! We are allowed to be here! Do you not know the California state law?
Get out! Get out, or you're gonna go to jail. I don't care.
I'm pressed.
Let's just clear this out. Walk with us. Let's go.
I will walk with you, but the state law says I can stay after you guys clear out. Which way are you going? I'm pressed. I'm pressed.
You're gonna stand over there. We're gonna open up the road. You gotta step off the road.
Okay.
Back up. Back up.
Press, bro. I'm pressed. Relax. He
He
just told me to go over here. Fucking, do you know what the state law says in California about press people? Don't interrupt me. Do you know what the state law says? Press are allowed to be here after you call it an unlawful assembly. We're allowed to film. We're allowed to cross.
Your mother, chill the fuck out. What's wrong with you?
Give her the award already. Give her the award.
Apparently. Wait, I did not know that you clipped that together. That's kind of hilarious. So the first guy, he literally said to me, "You should be ashamed." I'm like, I should be. What am I ashamed of? Like the cop said that to me. I don't know if you got the tail end of that. I was like, I forgot he had said that.
It's funny. It's funny because on one end they're pretending that this is for your safety, and on the other, and on the other end they're damn near running you over with a fucking horse.
The guy. This is what kills me. If it was for my safety, he would have let me stay where I was. That was the safest place for us to film in the entire freaking mess. Where he pushed us down to was in front of the horses and in front of where they were like firing off less munitions. So him to say that he was doing this for my safety is complete and utter bullshit. He put us into a dangerous situation. I mean, it's just crazy.
Now,
and
folks,
then, obviously the horse, the guy intentionally charging me with the horse was a crazy lunatic. I kind of lost it on him too.
If there was any justice or sanity in this fucked up corporate media system we have in this country, people like Tina would win the awards, not these hacks at the New York Times and Washington Post, because she's fucking telling the police where to shove it. And we're not here to get access. We're not here to get access to Governor Newsom, to keep access to Mayor Bass, to keep access in good favor with the police so that we could then report and do stenography for whatever bullshit lies they tell us. That's what the majority of the rest of the media do.
Also, the other thing I want to point out, notice that they're not consistent in their messaging, right? So one officer's like, yeah, we need to go right there. And that's a guy that actually knows what the law says and is like perfectly secure and fine with press being around. But then the guy 2 seconds over is like,
they don't give a shit what the law says. What part of this don't you get? Santa's not real. The Tooth Fairy's not real. And they're not there to execute the law. They are there to protect capital and stop the proletariat.
Fair. I'm just saying, like, it's wild how one person's like, press is fine, do that. And then the next guy is like, it's not, my point is it's not consistent behavior on top of it.
Right. And part of it also is, let's be clear, there is a power complex. I'm not saying it's
some of them 100%.
I'm not saying all police are awful. I have a good friend of mine from high school. He's a cop. He's a good guy. And yes, there are situations that are stressful for them. I'm not, trying to paint a broad brush. But when he comes over there and yanks her off a hill where she's doing nothing but filming. She's not
in a safe area. And that was uncalled for.
That's all a power complex. You do what I say. Right?
No, I agree. And he literally said to me, I should be ashamed. I'm like, for what? Doing my job? You're the one that's breaking. My point to him also that I looked up the numbers higher than 147 million now, by the way. So point being is that the LAPD is costing the city a tremendous amount of money in lawsuits simply because of issues like this and worse, obviously way worse issues. This was mild, I guess, what I'm saying. But I think it's informative so people understand, like, I guess maybe behind the scenes, like what does it take for a journalist to get the footage that they get? There's a whole lot of crap that you never see that goes into that. And mainly because I don't necessarily think you should have to see that. I'm not the story. What's happening with me is not the story. The story is this is what's going on at the protest, right? But at this particular junction, what's happening to press is becoming the story because it's becoming increasingly difficult for us to do our jobs in these environments. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And you gave a great segue by lecturing that officer. Do you know how many lawsuits are coming? Because we're fucking suing their ass. That's why. We are suing their ass. Tina asked me, you know what? Before I say this, Tina, I want to give the audience a little behind the scenes. Okay. In 2017, I was arrested covering a Black Lives Matter protest in St. Louis. My cameraman at the time, Ty Bayless, and I were arrested. Protesters took a highway. This was over another unarmed black man being killed by police. In that case, in St. Louis, Anthony Lamar Smith, I believe his name was. If I'm botching that, my apologies. Unarmed black man killed. There were protests for a month straight in St. Louis. National media didn't cover it. To the Young Turks' credit, they sent me there when I was at the Young Turks, and I covered it. Anyway, protesters took a highway, illegal on their part. It's not illegal for me as a journalist to be on the highway to cover it. And when we got off the highway, the police first arrested the legal observers. It is illegal to arrest legal observers. So first they arrested the legal observers who were wearing the yellow hats. Then they arrested the journalists. Then they arrested the protesters. So they arrested.
You tell me. Yeah.
The legal observers and the journalists. so that you couldn't see what they were going to do to the
Well,
protest.
that's it. What's that mean? First they came for the journalists, then you don't know what happened. That's the point, isn't it? Like,
that's
so it's become a problem. Something needs to be done about it. So we're doing something about it.
But wait.
So, yeah.
This is the point. So my cameraman and I spent, I don't know, 16, 17 hours in jail.
Oh, right.
Whatever.
Right.
It wasn't pleasant, but people have had it a lot worse than we had it. So I get out of there. There's attention because, you know, at that time, I'm probably like a C-list internet journalist guy. So there was attention that I was arrested. So I say to Cenk, my boss at the time, hey, let's sue the fuck out of the St. Louis Police Department. We could get the ACLU on board. He gives me some birds and the bees speech about it would actually be more harm than good if we sued them. I get why you want to, but you know, it's not worth suing them. I said, wait a minute. You're telling me, first of all, they let most of the other journalists out. They kept me and my cameraman in for 17 hours.
What? Why do you think that is? That's kind of bizarre.
Probably because Ty, God bless him, said to the cop, he asked Ty, what's in your pocket? And Ty said, your sister. So Ty, my former cameraman, said,
but also that's not a good reason to hold somebody for long.
Yes.
But
so they kept us longer, whatever.
God
I could thank Ty for that. But I said to Cenk, wait a minute.
All mouthed off at cops when they put us in bad situations. Let's be honest.
Right. So I said to Cenk, wait a minute. You're calling the Young Turks rebel headquarters. They just arrested your reporter and cameraman, and you're not willing to sue them? Yeah, it would have cost money, but with the ACLU, maybe the ACLU would have done it for free.
Actually, you could get a pro bono attorney. A lot of these legal aid, they want to do First Amendment lawsuits in federal court.
So not only would have been the right thing to do, B, you could have promoted it. The Young Turks is fighting back. He didn't want to do it. So I say that not as to bring up something from nearly a decade ago and to attack Cenk, which I like to do, but because you said to me, do you want to get on this lawsuit? And I said, fuck yes. They're going around there. The LAPD, the Los Angeles County Sheriff, other local LA area police, they're going around like they're SEAL Team 6. And I would sue on behalf of the protesters, but I can't. But
this will help if they get it so what we're asking for is an injunction in federal court for First Amendment violations of 409.7. So eventually, if they get an injunction against some of these things that they're using, they won't be able to use them against Susan Seeger, by the way. She's UC Irvine, but she's a big First Amendment attorney. Several of these guys are ACLU attorneys. Carol Sabel is she used to run the NLG here in but she has successfully filed multiple First Amendment lawsuits.
So, as you see, Los Angeles Press Club is leading the way. We have jumped on it. This is against the city of Los Angeles as a municipal entity, against the LAPD. The chief in particular, Jim McDonnell, sued in his official capacity. Maybe there will be some others that jump on with us as plaintiffs. I have a conversation tomorrow with one of the lawyers. I'm not going to read you.
Jordan, read this. I mean, this beginning paragraph is so well written, but it's also true and kind of scary. Being a journalist in Los Angeles is now a dangerous profession. I mean, that is goddamn. Like, really, is that where the country's at? But yes, that is definitely, and it's not just me and Nick. There's been insane amounts of egregious violence.
There was an Australian journalist right on video that got shot at.
Yeah. It was insane. Yeah. I mean, they were even arguing with the NBC crew and falsely accused the journalist. The LAPD officer said, "You touched me," which was a clear lie. And thankfully, this journalist was like, "We didn't touch you. What are you talking about?" Like, this was on live too. So it's been a broad pattern that has been happening, and many people have been hurt. So, and again, like, they came for the journalists, and we don't know what happened next. I think it's true. I think this is a true thing.
We'll read. I'll put the link to the lawsuit if anyone wants to read it in the description under the video. But I'll read the first paragraph. Like Tina said, being a journalist in Los Angeles is now a dangerous profession. This case responds to the continuing abuse, including the excessive force by LAPD officers during recent protests in downtown Los Angeles against federal immigration policies. Dozens of journalists from around the world were present during these protests to record and report on the events as they unfolded. These journalists were not engaged in protests or unlawful activity and were exercising their First Amendment rights and safeguarding the First Amendment rights of all members of the community. They were fulfilling an important function in a democracy as set out in the First Amendment. And then the lawsuit goes on to detail Los Angeles Police Department's long history of this kind of abuse and illegal behavior. And I want to point out, Tina, for example, in the case of St. Louis, when I was arrested, I couldn't get mainstream media reporters to stick up for me. I mean, they don't like me. They don't like me because I shit on them continually. But sometimes there's a bigger picture. I asked Brian Stelter, who at that time was the host of CNN's Reliable Sources, which was CNN's, media show covering the media. And I asked, hey, it would have been nice to be invited on, but whatever. Could you at least report on the fact, not just me, but they arrested 6 or 7 journalists there? He said something like, yeah, we don't really cover like independent. I'm paraphrasing, but we cover more like mainstream media, like Washington Post. I'm like, oh, so it doesn't matter that independent journalists are getting rounded up now? You have to be part of the cocktail club at Washington Post and New York Times. So that's what he told me.
That is the wrong attitude to have. If they come for one journalist, they will come for all. And I do think that might be the game changer at this point, because this past week, you saw happen to cable news crews what happens to regular journalists on the street here all the time. Film the Police LA has lots of dirt. So I know William. William is somebody I talk to on the regular. He does he's turned that into a full-time career. Actually, you should follow his channel if you have.
William, if you have dirt on the police, leak it to Status Coup. I'll get it out there. Jordan Sheridan at StatusCoup.com.
No, I can put you in touch with him. You should have him on for an interview. He's kind of an interesting guy. I lost my train of thought. What was I saying before that?
Sign up as a Status Coup member for as low as $5 a month.
There you go.
Yes. Sign up as a Status Coup member so we could shoot more of these fucking criminals that are supposed to be executing the law, breaking the law. Sign up so we could be out there. Because, by the way, Tina, to be clear, it's not just that you're getting this footage. You're also out there interviewing people, trying to give voice. Not everything we did was covering the carnage. You did stuff where you were interviewing protesters.
Talk about that, Jordan, because the most of the protests were not violent. So the 2 scenes that we looked at, and you have much more on the channel, but this was insulated incidents that were happening, right? So the area around the federal detention building in downtown Los Angeles, which is adjacent to City Hall, it's surrounded by freeways, right? So this is where most of where things, got really out of hand. This is where it was very, very centrally located in that area only. Like if you went 10 miles out from there, you would not know that this was going on. So this is, these were intentionally designed to target what was happening at the federal detention center. And mind you, these detainees are still there in the basement. They're still there not getting relief. The CHP is still out there every day with their less munitions guarding that building. The National Guard is still out there every day in front. Border Patrol agents in the most insane riot gear getups I have ever seen. Honestly, they look so ridiculous. I don't know how they walk in these outfits. They're that armored up. You're like, are you kidding me right now? Are still outside there. So the building is entirely surrounded by these federal troops, right? And these protests have been happening outside of that. And it's the LAPD, CHP, LASD that come in and clear this out. So I also want to mention something that happened on, was it Sunday? I can't remember now. This thing got so chaotic, Jordan, that the LA Sheriff's Department started shooting less lethal munitions at the LAPD. Kid you the fuck not. And it came over their radio. A very hectic cop was like, tell the LSD to stop shooting at us. We're taking less lethals from the sheriffs. I'm like,
that's how out of control they are. They're shooting at each other and they probably don't even fucking realize it.
I mean, it's like, good God, are you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me? Like, how is this the reality of our world?
Real quick update.
Protests were not violent.
Real quick update. Welcome new Status Coup member Britt signed up. Phoenix, love that name, signed up. Omega signed up. James signed up, as well as a bunch of people on YouTube. Keep it going. Last call, because we're going to sign off soon. I got to go take care of the toddler and newborn. But I want to show something else. And by the way, we're suing because it's the right thing to do, but you can't normalize this kind of behavior. I mean, the NYPD, the LAPD, whatever, they just put it in there to balance sheet and factor it in. Yeah, let's set aside X for lawsuits. But you cannot basically allow the police to target.
No,
some of this is accidental, but some of it is they're targeting journalists. They know your press, and they're targeting them to basically get them to intimidate them to not come out and cover it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Also to mention, the city council just had to take a $5 million loan this last week to pay for overtime, for LAPD overtime. $5 million loan.
I also want to mention the broader political lens here, because, I believe in modern monetary theory, for example, which federally means we don't have to taxes don't pay federally for government services. That's made up. But on the local level, they do. The local level cannot print money. Like your taxes pay for things. That's where your affordable housing is going, to this SEAL Team 6 row of loons. That's where your healthcare is going. That's where your education's going. That's where nutrition programs are going. That's where social services and programs for progress are going. To bloated fucking police budgets, to SEAL Team 6 level police, to the militarized equipment that they are giving them. That's where it's going. In LA, in New York City, in Washington, D.C., in Milwaukee, in Cleveland, in Chicago, in Philadelphia. I could go on, folks. That's where the money's going. And it's to keep the status quo by protecting the status quo. And that's part of this. It's not the violence. The violence is clear on screen, but there's also the violence of what they are taking away from. It is violent to deprive people of health care so that we could fucking create, Call of Duty video games in real life. That's violence.
Yeah, that's what it looks like, yeah.
It's violence to have decrepit schools so that we could give, what is LAPD at this point, $3-4 billion budget?
Yeah, something like that. It's close to 50% of the city's budget. Let's put it that way.
Most cities, over half of the budget go to this. And I'm not saying there's not a role for police in society.
Right.
There are some police that are good, but how much of this could be stopped if a lot of the police budget went to mental health and crisis response people and not these people carrying around Uzis? And you want to know something? If you start normalizing this, then you start moving the line to, hey, maybe they'll start shooting real bullets at some point.
Listen, we are headed towards that. If that starts to happen at one of these DHS things, it wouldn't shock me. I'm sorry to say. I mean,
Tina, before I go, what are your parting thoughts? Because this is not over. The ICE raids are still going on in LA and other places. We haven't even gotten to the footage in New York, because John Farina and our Ashley Bishop has gotten great footage of the protests in New York, where police are cracking skulls there too. Ashley was also in the federal immigration courthouse in New York, where they are rounding up not just mayoral candidates. They arrested Brad Lander the other day, but they're
crazy.
Basically, even when judges dismiss cases, which means
they're arresting them too,
the immigrant is free to go.
The entrapment, right? They're trapping people. These are people that are trying to go about becoming a citizen in the correct way, right? The correct way, if that's how you want it. So they're abiding by the rules set forth by our government, doing the right thing according to that, and they're getting arrested anyway. I mean, this is insane. That's where we're at. So, I have major concerns about how far gone this has become. So, you see these guys, and if you've only seen video, it's horrific enough. But when you see these guys in the real world, it's really, pardon my French, is really fucking shocking. These are federal agents. They look like bank robbers. The only reason I can tell they're federal agents is because they have Axon body cameras on, and they have other things that you're like, okay, only a federal agent would have this, that, and that, right? So, but you're like, my God, they're not even embarrassed or ashamed of the fact that they're behaving like the worst kind of criminal gangs right now, and they think they're in the right. Like, it's really, really disturbing. I think we have not seen the end of that. I think they're going to up the ante, and I think the reactionary forces fighting them back are going to increase as well. I think the fact that our city council is looking at ways in which they can protect themselves from some sort of a federal invasion is pretty wild. I know the state of Washington also recently passed a bill about that. So, my concern is like, I'm watching this happen and it's unfolding much more quickly than I thought it would. Okay, thank you. Somebody looked up the budget, 45.9% LA budget. I knew it was close to 50%.
And by the way, that's after they cut the budget. Tiny cut.
So
it used to be.
I was just going to say that it used to be over 50%, but they cut some of it back. Shit, I lost my train of thought again.
Sign up as a paid member to Status Coup for as low as $5 a month. And to be clear, Tina, right now it's about the ICE raids. I mean, bottom line, we could use the F word. You got a fascist president. There's going to be a lot more protests over the next 3.5 years, maybe more if he gets his way to stay in office. Right now, it's about immigration.
That's my train of thought. Does it play out, or things are escalating and they're going faster than I thought they would go? At some point, I got to bring the CW word onto the table. Like, does Trump want a civil war? Like, I don't think that that's a crazy statement at this point. And if so, what does that look like? Does it look like California, making a coalition with other states to like do something? Does it look like, again, a wild card? He tried to fire, 6,000 FBI agents that had the goddamn audacity prosecute people that tried to lead an insurrection against the government, which is like, are you serious?
Tina, I will say this. I will say this dramatically, but also seriously.
Yeah.
If there is a civil war, there's only two people I want covering it.
Yeah.
As humbly as actually three. As humbly as I could say it, I want myself out there if my wife will let me, because I think I am decent at this on the ground stuff. You.
Definitely.
You before me, I will say. Tina's better than me. And Ashley, our new reporter. 4. John Farina, too. So I want Status Coup. I want Status Coup out there.
John in my camp. And also, if Nick's healed up by then. Because it does, let's be honest, it does take a certain... Je ne sais quoi, I don't know what word I'm looking for. It does take a certain kind of person to be able to do this for a living. And there are times when I've been doing this a long time. There are times when I'm like, man, do I have PTSD or something? Like, at what time do I?
I do. Yeah.
You do.
A key word, for a living, because it costs money to do this, and you got to pay your bills. Keep the house over you. So that's why we're asking you. I'm not asking you to sign up so we could go have a nice dinner. Trust me, we're not eating out well here at Status Coup. It's so we could fund the journalism between myself, Ashley, John, Colin, our monthly costs, then freelancers like Tina, who I would love to make full time if we had the money to do it. You're talking our overhead some months is $20,000 to $25,000 a month, and we're not like living large here. I'm making a lot less than I'm making a lot less than I did while I was at the Young Turks, and other people were not making a lot. But we don't take massive corporate funding. We have no funding from Lockheed Martin, from United Healthcare, from Goldman Sachs. Our funding comes from viewers. So that's why we're asking if we could stack up. Right now we have about 3,000 paid members. If we could push that to 5,000 and then 7,000 and 10,000, you stack up this mountain of $5 a month memberships, $10 a month memberships. Then you have stable revenue coming in, so you could get out there and cover these protests, get out there and break stories, cover stories that other outlets aren't, like the lithium battery fire, like Flint, like East Palestine, like
City.
Cop City, which you covered on the ground in Atlanta. That's what we're trying to do. And a lot of people talk the talk and call themselves, independent. Yeah, go check their funding. A lot of people talk the talk and they're the anti-establishment media, but they're basically sitting around, blowing smoke. I'm not saying commentary is bad. We do commentary, but there's a difference between outlets that actually are in the trenches covering. We're putting a face to the fascism. There's a difference in just talking and bloviating about fascism and putting a face to it. There's a difference between talking about the downtrodden and disappearing middle class and getting out there and handing a microphone to them. I want to end on this.
Before you end, I got one thing I want to bring up because I think it's important as to why it's important to be on the ground and not just in a studio doing commentary. So I'm going to give you 2 examples. Both are related to what's happened this week. I had filmed, and I know you have the video up so people can go see this. So horse-mounted unit police, which I'm going to call horse support because that just doesn't fit in a tweet. Horse-mounted is like too many characters, but they basically went in with a group of LAPD on a skirmish line, started shooting at protesters. They shot one in the head, trampled the person. They were very, very seriously injured. I filmed the whole thing. At the end of it, I noticed that there was a Huntington Beach police officer in the mix. So Tina,
I have it.
I just cannot believe they. Anyway, this is why it matters. If you had just seen that video, you don't know who those officers are, whatnot. Like, there's no way to tell, right? So afterwards, I went up and I saw that there was a Huntington Beach police officer, and then I saw another one, so 2 for sure. But I said, "You're with the Huntington Beach police?" And he said, "Yeah, we're up here assisting." And I'm like, "All right, whatever." I didn't think much of it. I have video of him up close, and he was definitely assisting. He was helping clear the line, whatever. 2 days later, I get a text from somebody that says, "Hey, do you know the Huntington Beach police watch commander is calling you a liar and saying that they didn't have police present in LA?" And I'm like, "What now? What now? Can you send me a copy of that?" And sure enough, this guy's basically saying Miss Berg is misinforming the public. She's lying, blah, blah, whatever he said. And I was like, good thing I have video of your officers in uniform where it's crystal clear that they are Huntington Beach police officers with them and assisting. So I published some of that on BlueSky. Then the LAPD chief came out and made a formal statement that basically said, yes, we had officers up there, but they were just observing. So now we've gone from Ms. Berg is lying to, yes, we had officers there, but they're just observing. I'm like, no, let me show you more video of this guy actually doing crowd control and dispersal. Publish that. And so they haven't said anything after that. But my point is like, this guy was calling me a liar. I was clearly not lying. They were present. And if you are just doing commentary in a studio, you don't know that. And you're just going, oh, well, the police said they weren't there, so maybe she's not telling the truth. Like, this shit matters, man. And if you think it's happening with just this one incident only, you're mistaken. They do it all the time. These people have to be held accountable because they do it with frequency.
I got a speed read here because I need to go take care of my newborn. All right. Super chats. 5 Alarm Fire, $1. Thanks, 5 Alarm. Aaron, $2. Thank you for your work. Thank you. 5 Alarm Fire, again, is info@StatusCoup a good email to send a lead? Yes. Our email is info@StatusCoup.com. And my email is jordanchariton@statuscoup.com. But info@statuscoup.com is the best one because it goes to all of us. You could email us there. Fly Chompa Fly, $2. North Korea developing nukes and Trump sent love to Kim. Yes, he loves Kim.
What? That is I had forgotten about that. He did have a whole fucking love affair with that guy, didn't he? I forgot about that. Jesus.
Fly, jump, fly, $2. How much do these one-use bombs and fighters cost us? Probably enough to get rid of homelessness. Eliminating homelessness in America is about $25 billion.
Enough to give you universal health care.
Absolutely. Tony D, member for 39 months. Awesome to see Jordan and Tina together again. They have the best commentary and reporting. Very scary 5 months already.
Yeah.
Love my Status Coup shirt. Thanks. Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it. Beyond Extinction, 1999. Is nobody going to acknowledge Trump just declared himself dictator? This attack was an act of insurrection. His justification is meaningless. We must demand impeachment now.
I agree.
Just declared himself dictator? I think that's been going on for quite some while. But yes, absolutely, you are not wrong.
What he did was the next step of authoritarianism. I mean, clearly,
absolutely. Thank you so much, Beyond, for the $20. Appreciate it. D. Cook signed up as a YouTube member. Thank you, D. Excuse me. Fly Champa Fly, $2. Yes, media is the culprit. Stop blaming boomers. Totally agree. Big Dumb Animal, $9.99. Always love seeing Tina. Jordan's okay too. Why, thank you. I would much rather watch Tina than I agree. Celestia became a YouTube member. Thank you, thank you. Omega became a YouTube member. Jesse, YouTube member. Jesse, $10 super chat after becoming a YouTube member. Thank you, Jesse. Kerry gifted 5 YouTube memberships. You could also gift memberships, which randomly gives 5 random people a membership. Thank you, Kerry. Cool. Hija de la Buena Mail, $20 super chat. Thank you, thank you. Omega, after signing up herself, gifted 5 YouTube memberships. Thank you so much, Omega. Kerry has been a member for 13 months. Film The Police LA has lots of dirt.
That's William.
Kerry,
yeah.
William, my email is jordansheridan@statuscoup.com. I get a lot of emails, so I might not respond right away, but I'll do my best. Denise, $2. MSM avoids the word oligarchy. Unless Bernie's going around with a fight oligarchy.
Right.
Then they'll do it if they think it'll give them ratings. And when he's no longer a political threat. Suddenly they love Bernie when he can't run again.
I know, right? It's kind of wild like that.
Mrs. O'Brien signed up as a YouTube member. Thank you, Mrs. O'Brien. You sound like my 8th grade English teacher. Laglo, the YouTube member. Thank you. And real quick, I don't know where that echo is coming from. Signed up on our website, Brick, Phoenix, Omega, James, and Sandra. Thank you. I got to go so I don't get divorced. I got to take care of my kids. Thank you, Tina, for your time.
Yeah, happy to be here.
There's going to be protests against Trump's Iran war, probably in New York and LA over the next few days. So we'll be out covering that. Everybody have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon.